if we say we want to perfect our democracy, then we must be seen to be walking that talk towards perfecting our democracy. This business of it happened yesterday, so we must continue this vicious cycle. Mr. Speaker, it won't help any of us. Today, I will repeat what I've been saying since 7 January 2025, that this power of 187 is not permanent. We have seen 169 before, and we saw 137. So let us all be guided and know that the power immediately you are given is like an ice block. It begins to melt.
This house is a house of records, Mr. Speaker. The minority leader asks questions, why do you take Asase off? I think he should go and read the Facebook page of Mr. Gabi Otredakun, who admits that the general manager of Asase FM has told him that they failed to do their renewal, which was due in October, and they only did it in December. Mr. Speaker.
That the machine, and at the end of the day, transcribe, you can just sign. It makes it faster. And then
why should Asase Radio be denied the opportunity to broadcast? Why?
EpaHoaDaben sinupi na nokre eye baako pe.
Now, on the issue of democratic theory and constitutional purpose, I want to know from you, do constitutional term limits serve primarily to prevent individual power concentration or to ensure democratic competition, in your view?
Mr. Chairman,
I'll repeat. Yeah. I'm saying that I'm now delving into area of democratic theory and constitutional purpose. And my question is, in your view, does constitutional term limits serve primarily to prevent individual power concentration, or it is there as a constitutional imperative to ensure democratic competition?
EpaHoaDaben sinupi na nokre eye baako pe.
That the machine, and at the end of the day, transcribe, you can just sign. It makes it faster. And then number two, then secondly, I talk about the tools. If we can go AI, so that recordings are done swiftly. So that
Investigations, however, established that Eric Nyako, from 2017 until April 2024, and Idrisu Ibn Abubakar, April 2024 to December 2024, were responsible for preparing and transmitting NSP payroll data to GIBS for payment of allowances with the approval of the former NSA Director General, Mustafa Yusuf, who is now an MP, Gifty Oware Abuaji, acting from February 2021 to September 2021, and Osea Sibe Enchwe, September 2021 to January 2025. Without their explicit authority, nothing was possible. In other words, all these transfers could not have taken place without the authorization of the chief executive officers and or the director general, depending on the nomenclature that was used to describe their roles. In the 2022-2023 service year, a total of 8,256,000 Ghana cedis was deposited into an eSwitch account numbered 1177042059, which is registered in the name of suspect Osei Asibe. Investigations show that he personally received these funds. During a search at his residence, the aforementioned eSwitch card was found, and we intend to tender it in evidence during the course of the trial.
EpaHoaDaben sinupi na nokre eye baako pe.
Can you please clarify the question for me?
Well,
Ladies and gentlemen of the media, and my fellow countrymen and women, having concluded our investigations, we'll be filing charges against 12 suspects who worked as directors and staff of the NSA. I've already listed them, but for the abundance of doubt, let me mention them again. These are Mustafa Yusuf, a former executive director, Osea Sibe Entry, former director general, Gifty Owari Mensah, former deputy executive director, Kweku Ohinijan, former deputy executive director for operations, Abraham Bismark Gezi, former internal auditor, Kweku Dechi Eje, an accounts officer, Idrusu Ibn Abubakar, former head of accounts, Stephen Kobina Jemfi, I've asked that he should be rearrested because we've discovered some new accounts that, contain some deposits, and so he was picked up this morning. So he is currently he's undergoing further interrogation. He's the Koforidua director, then Prince Agofa Ewuku, a district director, and Jacob Yorsin, management information systems administrator in the northern region. We will also file charges against the following persons who are vendors on the marketplace on the central management system of the NSA in the eastern, Greater Accra, and Ashanti regions. Isaac Osei Asamani, the owner of Stalwart Option Buy Ventures. Charles Ohomening, the owner of GH Ohek Ventures. Philomena Arthur, the owner of Brainwave Ventures. Rose Hamilton, the owner of Marine Ventures. Kweku Opare Agofa, the owner of Franlisa Ventures. Solomon Jamina, the owner of Afarita Ventures. Haruna Mawulaya, the owner of Alfaida Enterprise. Sylvia Ntrewa Opare, the owner of Silsona Ventures. And then Peter Mensah, a legal practitioner and the husband of Gifty Owari Mensah. We have made the decision to enter into non-prosecution agreements with some of the persons who were involved in this criminal enterprise, especially the vendors, and these have agreed to provide compelling testimonies as witnesses for the prosecution.
We look at the charge, the amount involved, if it's liquidated, if it's money, the amount involved, and weigh the pros and cons as to whether the person will consider not coming to court for trial, whether the person is a flight risk, and we consider all that. You can't be, the basis of bail is to make sure that the person comes to face trial.
EpaHoaDaben nti sinupi na nokre eye baako pe. EpaHoaDaben ti sinupi na nokre eye baako pe.
98.9 FM EpaHoaDaben dwumadie enie memo ha emo akwaba eba enejoada edition so the 16th of June 2025 and you want to check with your time, it's 25 minutes after 2 bidin ene Bismark Brown obetimi afremi baby atena se wie me ne mapamfo na nam ya Reynolds ya wajeman na naje wu a na anu ekwa ne papa yi oda so ye tuntum ti mo a ensawabode ne maaye no mo hwe na emra wa na yemfa nkoka nkonya kaningu nkonya no bebregu ho se Collins kono kwesesa Collins Piska inti no of course with a team no so well packed. Jemima assisting with production as well as the digital team led by Mrs. Abigail Fianco, ensuring say we are streaming live and everywhere. Now yebedi nkoma hodo and everywhere. President John Dramani Mahama has tasked the finance minister and the energy minister together with the BOG say omo monitor observing the course between Israel and Iran na impact bi ebetime nya Ghana so no yenya models ahodo na yenhwe how ebetime respond na enko erode the gains we have chalked so far with regards to a cedi na hoden enya a reflection on petroleum prices. But we have common said the economy so aben postpone the implementation of Doomsor levy and we had tietie nsemu mu a the akoba ma ban postponing the implementation of that levy we nyina no has to do with near koso between Israel and Iran. As any what the one cedi ne beto so a na Iran any Israel tokwa no ekoma crude prices ekosoro pa na no ntimi nya wo na prices ne bekosoro a na chese o bogana for san bra wo musu. Nti it has been postponed. Some are saying say this indicates a listening government otie ne manfo ensemo awode eye adwuma by the minority in parliament nso kasa dendendene omasem ne say the Doomsor levy must go entirely or say minority leader say yes scrappy and free ho yenyin free ho kra. They also say and accuse the NDC say a flip-flop approach and womo deal with sa Doomsor levy flip-flop saying ene me de Doomsor levy ba ochina ma twentwen so ade ebeche ma postpone. One say a lot of thinking hasn't really gone into the Doomsor levy no said ye womo kano enti akoye se aban nan kasa na won hye danwene hu nkwa akire ensiesie na chiye ansa na ode Doomsor levy ba enti nene wa postpone ochina wo se me twentwen so kakra yedi nkomo ne abonkomo. But in the second pricing window of petroleum prices, na expectation is anka petrol prices bekosro. But what we are being told by Komogni say, enya dia petrol prices ebekosro said the ye hunu no almost say omo old stock ewo ho and wechi no so some of the oil marketing companies assigning agreements da womo agree on the price womo de to crude enti enkonkoba se ehu behia se ebeto petrol mu. But question is, how long can we keep petrol prices at where it is today, looking at the air cost between Iran and so Israel? Say entokwano ekwanim na escalated. Na ebenya a huge impact on crude, like we are already seeing now. Can Ghana continue to keep fuel prices where it is now? Yebedi nkomo bonkomo, but especially when the dollar one of the major factors in the petroleum price build-up. Yebetimi akase with our taps and control over cedi any dollar we can manage the situation amount for enya insunsuan so boni bi ana. Ewe adapron so ayedi eho enkomo. When say Ghana ne IMF, we are under a program. Ye ne IMF nyina ye de ensa hye krata ase a womo boa yen ama ya recover in terms of your economic challenges ye wo. Me no ka say ye review IMF any Ghana aban a review sa agreement way the third and we are at the fourth time. Now every review be a yakobia. There has been a staff level agreement with the government of Ghana. Just say IMF staff ebeba any Ghana team ebeshia say how I performing under the ECF saying yaye baako yaye mienu yaye miensa. The fourth review mu ena ye way. Me no ka say IMF staff have been in this country, I think the last 1 month kramponi. Omone the Ghanaian side. Atena say a review our performance under the ECF. Oma approve indeed yen performance so far akase ya bom modene. Na modern bona ya bono ensi wa was say omode ko at the board level. Na IMF board ekase mu review amokoye reflect positive things. Inti ya approve na sika wasa modema Ghana in the fourth tranche no more de ama wo mo. Me no woka say Ghana expected about 370 million US dollars every IMF for under the ECF. Na said the staff level agreement ya kwa aya positive no, most likely the board would approve say for 370 million dollars no emba Ghana. What would that mean for the economy? So $370 million na ebebano. And what will it also mean for the cedi and dollar relationship? And impact ben the betimianya impact in the benyano ebeche. Ebi say 370 million is just a drop in the ocean. But that will be more dollars coming into the system. Yenin komo niamon komo. Minim say what me monitor forex market now where the way I see the dollar now kwa. Abochi for no they are quoting somewhere around 13 cedis oh. And amu hunu ye. Abochi for no quote 13 cedis to $1 bisa no. That just say on the black market the dollar is not the 11 and 12 we are seeing. People are calling 13 cedis. But local banks are they are getting it around 11 cedis. And then we'll be talking to an economist to help us unpack and understand the staff level agreement I reached with IMF, what it means in terms of compliance with Enyema Yankasa Yajiatumu under the IMF program. And that's at 370 million anymore. The impact in saying, and how will this solve anything? Yenin komo, yamon komo, EpaHoaDaben jumedie, ene ewie eso enye. Na said ye no na no issue toye emi say Ghana no nyankanko ni kumasinko na eba be flat prone. You say no eyatre voter region sokode enya wo mo share of air flats. Takrade de secondly basa kronu nyina almost the market center nyina was flooded. We yebusa se ye de fa he ne de akohe. Eda bi beba ema insuo amene yembiem akoye Noah patu ana 98.9 FM EpaHoaDaben jumedie ni midin ene Bismark Brown obetimi afreme BB. Na mena wo kasa se Parliament Appointments Committee vete Supreme Court nominees. There are 9 of them. 9 nominees to the Supreme Court are President John Dramani Mahama Bodini. Mena woka say Justice Jamefe and ote before the Appointments Committee anymore. Wono etoto no ebusano ensemo ahodo. There have been interesting statements made by some of the justices. Justice Jamefe has been talking about ensemchro for Yejuma as against Emrano. He talks also about investigative journalism as against the judiciary, and was say young protecting investigative journalists. Nemomono, they should also report the facts and not perceptions. We'll cross over to the Parliament of Ghana. Na the bits and pieces of Jumediana Ekoswono at the Abrewo as the Appointments Committee of Parliament vete the 9 Supreme Court nominees. Mampeni apa womwa wono eko akwakosum oman Ghana. We obetibia joining live on Facebook with your thoughts, with your comments, as well as your views. Na yaken kaini nyina so the amawo. Na minority for the minority leader himself, the Honorable Kwamena Osahene Afenyo Markins, and so up to be the Amani President John Dramani Mahama. Na no asemu ebeto dwa Ministry of Communications, led by the Sector Minister, the Honorable Sam George. Edebetu just said a number of radio stations, wono atumuono, hon komo, ena ama minority leader, Kambie. Now, Ose President Mahama's belated actions for the purpose of optics will not help our democracy. na asɛm say intervention President Mahama yeye ebeka say watu ne na etie mu bi say saa about 62 radio stations a yebetu mu no emu owrem nti wono ankasa I intervene ama minister na ma affected radio stations no bosome baako say omo ebe ye take remedial steps to address eye ne akoba enu nti eba ya ye dundum eye wono emfidie na utie minority leaders mo kan wo say mampani intervention no eye ehwehwanimu ade a wode performance agye ade a wopeso wode kire se wono no ase wono wahumo broma media fo na banda da bi ne ne ahumo broma media fo ose we ni nyina na ehwehwanimu wopese onya Ghana fo animpa na okira wose honorable Sam George cabinet minister a decision to close down 62 radio stations could not have been taken without parliament. Enti ono ni susue mu no say with that cabinet I should say ono ni susue mu no say cabinet minister de such a decision about beto abontene dia na e was say anka president ya aware na den na assign president ho ama de na betodwa ene president tu ni na tie mu say oh adabraka we de munya botre na yehwe na omuntimi nsiesie wo mu fie ensemu eye ewe ye de nsemu itu nsani ani na maton safro se brabe kan ho na yendi sankomoe na yenwenwene ensem no ho embomu. You want to join us with your thoughts, your comments, as well as your views over Facebook ayedini ewo ho happy 98.9 bomoden se ode o messages beka ho na yakenkan ni nyina so ede amawo enche na meba o messages no so na wonsemu a ode atodwa no yakenkan ni nyina be ede amawo. Masawudu Kumase Bantama, I see you and thanks for joining us live this afternoon. Also betimi aba na mechiao mamo akwaba soronko na afenso onkomodi a ode na mo no ye de ni nyina ato edwa ede amawo. Alternatively obetimi ede o WhatsApp messages nso aba na makenkan ede amawo. Ode WhatsApp messages ne ba na de 0594 051145 so na mejebre na makenkan ni nyina ede amawo. Oba Facebook no na wakai se obema okasa no ho ache na wako straight to the point. Last week the Attorney General and Minister of Justice Dr. Dominic Ayine press conference. Sa press conference o akoti adwenkyere bebre. Ebinom susu se kasa na ya adoso. Ebinom susu ne se anka Attorney General de wa build a case na o case strong and watertighter. Enye krom kasa oko straight to court na wakwa kire sampa o strong case. Ebi se ni Attorney General ye no amounts to media trial, amounts to say o pronounce o be guilty even before our order ne bekwa kwagina asemdibia. Me no ka say gift your worry any former executive director ma National Service Secretariat the honorable former KMA boss you can for example or says be any former Minister of Youth and Sports. Some penny for nyina ye form nkogina court. In fact, ye shed dante kwadu a ye dia bom ye mo wo kwadu say ye charge them for willfully causing financial loss, ye charge them for stealing, and now ye charge them for any other offense. We're yet to hear the charges and even be put before court. But ahead of that, uti Attorney General Sam Kayena, then Sam Kayeni nyina kire se nipa koi omo di bone, omo wieska, omo twa enkofo din egu aban emumemu a ye tua wo mu ka wo mreko a wo mu nsem fata waka nsem ni bebre kurampo se ebinumu kurampo gift worry say ode omanfo bosumi sika ekosi awowa de kwaji loan waka ni nyina de agum framamu so be no ka say charge pa charge a wode abo wo no mu no eyade a yennim so far na said de enkobo no etie no yebe ko parliament na nka yakofa appointments committee no edwumedi a wo mudie nanso entia menya ne se aba awieye. But we have some sound bites to share with you from that session and we'll bring it to you when it is ready. But back to this Attorney General assuming it's a fact to say bin sunsusu ne say the Attorney General no the transparency beba ebema ensem no mu ada ho fan ebeboa ma omanfo nso ate baby a state ni ejina efa eye ankrofo ya ye omumu hwehwemu yi ebi nsusu ne se ebi nsi da benda na attorney general bi akase mede obuo ma Ghana fo na ne eme ye no mabie mu de akere wo mu no mahunu ne ekoso because me no ka say NDC for mapa NDC for foot soldiers dodo na su ebusa se na corruption da ben na omuhu asunsunsanso ne ho entokwa na NDC ka so mo beko no entina ebi ka se ehu behia pa se attorney general no beye ne se de wo ye no esane se ema tension ba form ema manfo nso a wo expectations ehunu ne attorney general no ye menim ba bia wugina ewo sasemu yi ho but you want to share your thought with me on this one because it's a public matter. Attorney General na ba bedwamu abeka nsem bebre afa former appointees of the NPP government ehwo na said the assembly tie no uso mu saying ne kwan so ano this is about the third time anameboa this is a third press conference the Attorney General aye regarding cases ahodo but let's be fair to the Attorney General as well. Attorney General de opinion dubu ahiansem ba and am no ka say so more court. I think said they are the case management level sang and someone koso before the court. But quite apart from that, were other cases Attorney General Bebo so yen shed them who know some court. And the national service matter was one of the cases. A da or de a dubu ahiansem betu jano or the national service the also can home. But we are yet to see the issue of national service in court. Ebibusa say, what is so difficult hold the Attorney General from going to the courts over these matters? Yenin komo yemon kobo na yenwenwene and semono ehwo. Now before the appointments committee and name mentimi ho ase more or less mentimi ho ase kakra koso between a top-ranking members of the committee, and I'm referring to the two leaders of parliament, the minority and majority leaders, the Honorable Apenyo Makin and the Honorable Mahama Ayarega, before Justice Jamefe's vetting. Yentien semuni bia a course so appointments committee setting an area.
Distinguished committee members, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the nominees before us for this period of vetting. Obviously, their legal accomplishment merited recognition, and I express sincere sympathy for constitutional controversies surrounding their nominations, a controversy entirely of the government making, not yours. We convene whilst our Chief Justice sits suspended through procedurally questionable process under Article 146 and 296. An executive that suspends one Chief Justice while installing 7 new justices is not filling vacancies. It is reshaping the constitutional order. The appearance of institutional capture is inevitable and constitutionally catastrophic. The Supreme Court has abdicated its constitutional duty, repeatedly refusing to intervene when fundamental principles of natural justice have sympathetic violation. This institutional cowardice is constitutionally inexcusable. You will inherit a court that retreats into comfortable silence when courage was demanded. Unfortunately, Honorable Chairperson, this government's double standard is staggering. The same NDC that relentlessly opposed Justice Sophia Benasco Essa and Professor Richard Frimpong Opon's nomination under President Akufo-Addo, crying that the court was bloated, now presents 7 nominees simultaneously. Where was their concern about court size then? This gross dishonesty and rank opportunism insult our intelligence and constitutional processes. When 2 very qualified justices sought appointment, the NDC screamed about judicial bloat. Now, with 7 nominees, their discover agent constitution reconvene. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity. Distinguished committee members, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the nominees before us for this period of vetting. Obviously, their legal accomplishment merits recognition, and I express sincere sympathy for constitutional controversies surrounding their nominations, a controversy entirely of the government making, not yours. We convene whilst our Chief Justice sits suspended through procedurally questionable process under Article 146 and 296. An executive that suspends one Chief Justice while installing 7 new justices is not filling vacancies. It is reshaping the constitutional order. The appearance of institutional capture is inevitable and constitutionally catastrophic. The Supreme Court has abdicated this constitutional duty, repeatedly refusing to intervene when fundamental principles of natural justice have sympathetic violation. This institutional cowardice is constitutionally inexcusable. You will inherit a court that retreats into comfortable silence when courage was demanded. Unfortunately, Honorable Chairperson, this government's double standard is staggering. The same NDC that relentlessly opposed Justice Sophia Benasco Essa and Professor Richard Frimpong Opon's nomination under President Akufo-Addo, crying that the court was bloated, now presents 7 nominees simultaneously. Where was their concern about court size then? This gross dishonesty and rank opportunism insult our intelligence and constitutional processes. When 2 very qualified justices sought appointment, the NDC screamed about judicial bloat. Now, with 7 nominees, they discover urgent constitutional necessity. Such breathtaking inconsistency exposes an administration driven by political calculation, not constitutional principle. To our nominees, you seek to join an institution whose legitimacy rests on public confidence in your constitutional fidelity. You must become guardians of our fundamental law, not instrument of executive convenience. The Supreme Court's authority derives from moral standing, not political alignment. True judicial independence requires constitutional courage, deciding cases on law and precedent, not political preferences. It means protecting minority rights against majoritarian excesses. It means sometimes disappointing those who appointed you because the Constitution demands nothing less. This committee bears solemn responsibility for ensuring only nominees demonstrating unbending commitment to judicial independence receiving approval. We must probe not merely legal knowledge, but constitutional philosophy and commitment to deciding cases without political consideration. To all participants, embrace robust discourse with dignity, ask hard questions, challenge respectfully. Our democratic maturity is measured by our ability to disagree with purpose while maintaining civility. To Ghanaians watching, witness democracy in action. Tolerate provocative questions. They are democracy's oxygen. We are building a nation, not trading insults. To the media and parliament staff, thank you for enabling this democratic exercise to be undertaken. I conclude by saying that we stand at a constitutional crossroads. These proceedings will either restore judicial confidence or mark the day Ghana's highest court become an executive instrument, not constitutional conscience. The nominees seek sacred constitutional trust. May they prove worthy. May we test that worthiness thoroughly. History will judge whether we defended democracy when it needed us most. Future generations will thank us for courage or condemn us for cowardice. The choice is yours. The time is now. Thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And thank you for indulging me. I did not know the minority leader had a scripted statement as he has done. So I don't have a scripted response, except I picked on a few things that he has said. One, he speaks about the ongoing process relating to the Chief Justice, Justice Gertrude Tokono. I first and foremost think that this is not the proper platform to be questioning the processes involved in relation to Justice Tokono. I think it is inappropriate, but let me just indicate that there is nothing procedurally questionable in terms of the processes that Justice Tokono is being taken through, because the Constitution is clear in terms of what the process is, and that process has been followed diligently, and efforts to question that process in the Supreme Court has not been successful. And so I find it inappropriate that before a committee of this nature, the minority leader will be questioning the process. And on the issue of accusation that this government is engaged in double standards, I think that is also not appropriate. The nominees are before you for you to vet their suitability, and to say that this government is engaged in double standards is totally inappropriate. I was on the appointments committee when the two nominees were rejected. And let me indicate clearly that my side of the House advocated for the rejection on the basis that at that time, the anticipated retirement of some judges, which would have created a vacancy, hadn't taken place. And there was no need in anticipation to be appointing replacements. And we also argued, and I do not shy away from that argument, that the then president had the opportunity to nominate so many members onto the Supreme Court. And even if some judges were retiring, he should give the opportunity for an incoming president, given that we're so close to elections, to also have an opportunity to also nominate people to the Supreme Court. It wasn't clear who will be the incoming president. It could have been an NPP incoming president. It could have also been an NDC incoming president. That basically was the crux of our argument at that time. And so for someone to today be accusing this government of double standards, in my opinion, is inappropriate. And I think that we should not use the nomination of these Supreme Court judges as a the vetting of the nominees as a platform to be engaged in partisan politics. I think that basically that will be my response for now, and I welcome the nominees, and as indicated, we will be vetting them according to the standards set by our Constitution, and I hope that this doesn't become another partisan bickering exercise. Thank you.
EpaHoaDaben ti sinupi na nokre eye baako pe.
So you have heard, I don't know how, Sabefrewe a banter, but this appears to be a very gentle banter between the minority leader and the majority leader. Minority leader Nedi kan kasa the honorable Apenyo Maken na kasa o kasa no safe no adwene a ene appointments committee of parliament ashase evete President Mahames Supreme Court nominees. Wapao a judge phobia ono eko Supreme Court. Na omo akoka omo mo ho de da no ho no ma ye adwuma. Abekaya the nomination of Supreme Court justices ebe a very controversial matter under President Akufo-Addo. Or appointed a good number of justices to the Supreme Court, including a lawyer Emrentia, say a lawyer near was served at the bar for more than 10 years, or you're qualified to be a judge. More so, Obi Awa distinguishing as a lawyer over the years. What so experience be brave, or you're qualified to be nominated even to the Supreme Court. But the Emrana President Akufo-Addo wakonyaso, the number of justices or nominatee womu promotee womu to the Supreme Court, ebe ya someone ha NDC4 pa. NDC4 ka say na obloti the Supreme Court. Almost an ka ho say or pack the Supreme Court. Na at some point Krebika said na namfofo bi ene NPP affiliated justices and all power modi omako eye the Supreme Court. Na nipa dodo a wodi omako Supreme Court no edoso dodo. When you akoto abawie na kwansi President Mahama so abaye mampanin. Ene President Mahama appointed about 7 nominees or 7 justices to go to the Supreme Court. There are 7 judges or person omako Supreme Court. Na enona Justice Jamefe appear before the appointments committee and Nimo say about to turn na ya veti no send ye veti ministers no. Constitution no soma kwan say Supreme Court justices and so parliament be veti wo mo said ye veti ministers. Inti Justice Jamefe mere na so a okopie before the appointments committee. The opening remarks of the minority leader, who is the ranking of that committee, had to do with the fact to say, and now ye can say, or you subrofubi say there is institutional capture. Mze na and this for can be say state capture. We know or say a institutional capture. Na the executive, a president, pe a capture the Supreme Court. Esane nominations are why. Oko so kase a institutional capture because of a choir. And now ye to Supreme Court justices and I say nominees to the Supreme Court no. We are saddled with the removal of the Chief Justice or the head of the entire judiciary. Na ochiremua sadia na kosu say CA the removal of the Chief Justice alongside vetting of Supreme Court Justice and as a nominees, Echra ebra na se enei se President Mahama ni NDC fo aba power na after nyomo katia President Akufo-Addo se or park Supreme Court with the nkrofo ene eye judges ahodo no se ne oma ba na omo nso nominate about 7 akọ Supreme Court at the same time wa na kire se omo ankasa no omo anya principled omo asem omo kae no omo akoda ne te se o friend say ensayem ne akiri mu ka searching sayem aha why searching sayem ase wono no wonye straightforward inti ene obi appointing 9 wo problem wo bae wo so de 7 koka ho inti se problem ne pa ne se Supreme Court nipa no do so se ne mo kan ye na adan na ndisi mo aba power na mo so mo di bi kwa koka ho eno ene the honorable Apenyoman King the cracks of the issues are already here, and he points to the fact to say it marks of double standardness on the part of the NDC. Wasanso go ahead admonish nominees ni say omonkai say Supreme Court adwuma no mkwakwaye no Ghana mra eho adwuma na omkwakwaye na enye party adwuma no mkwakwaye omonkoka mra omonkoka politics. Na we na majority leader the honorable Mahama Yarega so eje brese in asemi de afumi mu kakra because ye be na menim say minority leader kra no a prepare ni speech or denam but otie ni nsem ni bia nti oyi nsem ni bia no o say first of all appointments committee na nimu na nya the appropriate forum a minority leader no ebe criticize processes a ye fa so ede yi eye the Chief Justice na se owo concerns bi fa ekwan a ye the Chief Justice ne fa so a enye emra appointments committee atenase a womo eba ben vete Supreme Court no judges ena wo obe resist asem no osanso to so koso kiremu nti a NDC for oppose nominees ahodo a President Akufo-Addo epa womo CFO nko the Supreme Court so tie minority leader obo justices mienu bidin eka say NDC for opposed their nomination to the Supreme Court. No, they were not nominated. In fact, they couldn't go through vetting because of minority foreign stance on those 2 nominees. Now, Honorable Mahama Yarega Chiremu no, the Chiremu ni nyina ne say ade ana eha wo mo kese ne say wo judges ni bia omo ben retirement enti na anka hu behia because that time nso na kakra koto aba adenti na president aye koto aba wo ko a wo mabiem wo paw eye ajagefo ewo mrekwa onim se akakra bi na wo naso ade na wunyan ma president foforo obeba no ema meye adwuma na asem ni se eye weye nti na omo NDC fo na omo opposi eye president Akufo-Addo ne nominations to the Supreme Court. Now, it wasn't born out of any partisan mischief. But, you know, to Chrome Honey, yes, numbers no Dawson, only MPP for any Adomoko Supreme Court. Some call for crying, a big cry, President Akufo-Addo, now for 4 near the idea. A big crack can who say, Dream, Ketas Shane, Proyan, near Momaya, or Bemunti. Any yes, some call for Kogu Supreme Court, say, Baya, powers a son. We had all of these arguments, but interestingly, the majority leader said it was because no mususiemu ya ben elections na enye appropriate say president awufia konyaso obe nominate Supreme Court justices ama the next president awoba intina omususuye no but na me no ka say Supreme Court justices number na kosoro yede 7 ababeka ho me do go back to parliament na me say play back this nkomo a course yi na ye babaka I will serve you with the number of Supreme Court justices ayewo besi ne and ask you say do we need more Supreme Court justices ana don't forget say a chief justice here ne aben a trigger processes to remove her because of petition beto president anymore no emra na abanda da no wo ho no ochro krata bi koma president Akufo-Addo. In fact, it is one of the accusations among for against there ochro krata koma president Akufo-Addo say or had the enormity of work was Supreme Court adwuma no eso edoso sen ajagefo ewo ho enti ono chief justice no LST enipa 5 for osusu se omomode mu akwanimu as a president eye na adwene so opese wo paw Supreme Court phobia on consider sa 5 no letter we leak here babonten the chief justice na wanya sumdwe o mamu ha fact accusations flew left right center above and below say ebin sida say a chief justice etro to the president say on nominate judge Fobi to the Supreme Court because okay emranimu but be no one say the chief justice can even suggest or nominate persons for the president to nominate. Question me busa say adwuma na the Supreme Court no eso saa after 9 people have been appointed to the Supreme Court to join omo order no. Yes, I did about 7 ekwakoka ho na. Happy 98.9 FM. EpaHoaDaben Jumedie. Let's go back and listen to the minority leader and the majority leader over sa assembly. Yaba, ebedwam na ya tie komuni mu ankasa.
Chairman, thank you for the opportunity. Distinguished committee members, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the nominees before us for this period of vetting. Obviously, their legal accomplishment merited recognition, and I express sincere sympathy for constitutional controversies surrounding their nominations, a controversy entirely of the government making, not yours. We convene whilst our Chief Justice sits suspended through procedurally questionable process under Article 146 and 296. An executive that suspends one Chief Justice while installing 7 new justices is not filling vacancies. It is reshaping the constitutional order. The appearance of institutional capture is inevitable and constitutionally catastrophic. The Supreme Court has abdicated its constitutional duty, repeatedly refusing to intervene when fundamental principles of natural justice have sympathetic violation. This institutional cowardice is constitutionally inexcusable You will inherit a court that retreats into comfortable silence when courage was demanded. Unfortunately, Honorable Chairperson, this government's double standard is staggering. The same NDC that relentlessly opposed Justice Sophia Benasco Essa and Professor Richard Frimpong Opon's nomination under President Akufo-Addo, crying that the court was bloated, now presents 7 nominees simultaneously. Where was their concern about court size then? This gross dishonesty and rank opportunism insult our intelligence and constitutional processes. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity. Distinguished committee and merited recognition. And I express sincere sympathy for constitutional controversies surrounding their nominations, fairly questionable process under Article 146 and 296. An executive that suspends one Chief Justice while installing 7 new justices is not filling vacancies. It is reshaping the constitutional order. The appearance of institutional capture is inevitable and constitutionally catastrophic. The Supreme Court has abdicated its constitutional duty, repeatedly refusing to intervene when fundamental principles of natural justice are sympathetic violation. This institutional cowardice is constitutionally inexcusable. You will inherit a court that retreats into comfortable silence when courage was demanded. Unfortunately, Honorable Chairperson, this government's double standard is staggering. The same NDC that relentlessly opposed Justice Sophia Benasco Essa and Professor Richard Frimpong Opon's nomination under President Akufo-Addo, crying that the court was bloated, now presents 7 nominees simultaneously. Where was their concern about court size then? This gross dishonesty and rank opportunism insult our intelligence and constitutional processes. When 2 very qualified justices sought appointment, the NDC screamed about judicial bloat. Now, with 7 nominees, they discover urgent constitutional necessity. Such breathtaking inconsistency exposes an administration driven by political calculation, not constitutional principle. To our nominees, you seek to join an institution whose legitimacy rests on public confidence in your constitutional fidelity. You must become guardians of our fundamental law, not instruments of executive convenience. The Supreme Court's authority derives from moral standing, not political alignment. True judicial independence requires constitutional courage, deciding cases on law and precedent, not political preferences. It means protecting minority rights against majoritarian excesses. It means sometimes disappointing those who appointed you because the Constitution demands nothing less. This committee bears solemn responsibility for ensuring only nominees demonstrating unbending commitment to judicial independence receiving approval. We must probe not merely legal knowledge, but constitutional philosophy and commitment to deciding cases without political consideration. To all participants, embrace robust discourse with dignity, ask hard questions, challenge respectfully. Our democratic maturity is measured by our ability to disagree with purpose while maintaining civility. To Ghanaians watching, witness democracy in action. Tolerate provocative questions. They are democracy's oxygen. We are building a nation, not trading insults. To the media and parliament staff, thank you for enabling this democratic exercise to be undertaken. I conclude by saying that we stand at a constitutional crossroads. These proceedings will either restore judicial confidence or mark the day Ghana's highest court become an executive instrument, not constitutional conscience. The nominees seek sacred constitutional trust. May they prove worthy. May we test that worthiness thoroughly. History will judge whether we defended democracy when it needed us most. Future generations will thank us for courage or condemn us for cowardice. The choice is yours. The time is now. Thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And thank you for indulging me. I did not know the minority leader had a scripted statement as he has done. So I don't have a scripted response, except I picked on a few things that he has said. One, he speaks about the ongoing process relating to the Chief Justice, Justice Gertrude Tokono. I first and foremost think that this is not the proper platform to be questioning the processes involved in relation to Justice Tokono. I think it is inappropriate, but let me just indicate that there is nothing procedurally questionable in terms of the processes that Justice Tokono is being taken through, because the Constitution is clear in terms of what the process is, and that process has been followed diligently, and efforts to question that process in the Supreme Court has not been successful. And so I find it inappropriate that before a committee of this nature, the minority leader will be questioning the process. And on the issue of accusation that this government is engaged in double standards, I think that is also not appropriate. The nominees are before you for you to vet their suitability, and to say that this government is engaged in double standards is totally inappropriate. I was on the appointments committee when the two nominees were rejected. And let me indicate clearly that my side of the House advocated for the rejection on the basis that at that time, the anticipated retirement of some judges, which would have created the vacancy, hadn't taken place. And there was no need in anticipation to be appointing replacements. And we also argued, and I do not shy away from that argument, that the then president had the opportunity to nominate so many members onto the Supreme Court. And even if some judges were retiring, he should give the opportunity for an incoming president, given that we're so close to elections, to also have an opportunity to also nominate people to the Supreme Court. It wasn't clear who will be the incoming president. It could have been an NPP incoming president. It could have also been an NDC incoming president. That basically was the crux of our argument at that time. And so for someone to today be accusing this government of double standards, in my opinion, is inappropriate. And I think that we should not use the nomination of these Supreme Court judges as a the vetting of the nominees as a platform to be engaged in partisan politics. I think that basically that will be my response for now, and I welcome the nominees, and as indicated, we will be vetting them according to the standards set by our Constitution, and I hope that this doesn't become another partisan bickering exercise. Thank you.
EpaHoaDaben ti sinupi na nokre eye baako pe.
Chairman, thank you for the opportunity.
Openi a wote nka CCA majority leader, the Honorable Mahama Ayarega. Earlier you heard the voice of the minority leader, the Honorable Kwamena Afenyo Markins. Issues ni ebiemu edi ato. Let me hit my WhatsApp console. Mumubi no the messages ni biaba. This one says that Bibi, as for the NDC, the least said about them, the better. They have shown that they are unprincipled. You accuse the previous government of packing the courts. You are just 6 months in office and you're already nominating 7. How many would you nominate by the end of your 4 years? NDC for you. One for Udin account. Pacho, one more the messages for WhatsApp no. Aya kainefa Udin account emame. This one says that Bibi, whether they like it or not, we are in power. We will nominate and nominate. Nobody can do FOCO. We are nominating people who are going to judge by the law and not by party. That is the difference between Nanado and President John Mahama. Pacho wants one for the account. Next time, do so for me. Still on our WhatsApp console. This one says that BB, I am happy Dumsor levy has gone away. John Mahama is indeed a listening president. Nyode or say a friend KK Fosu. I hope that's not the musician though. Well, my member Facebook na member can come out for some messages nibi omodiaba. Masawudu Kumase Bantama Michelle and anyway, thanks for joining us live on Facebook. Joseph Amwabe Lavegin, also about Facebook Live, Memoaha Medawase. Piaga, I see you. Emmanuel Emma Wule, Minyanhuno, appear and present yourself to the rest of the team. Munina Mombrana, Yanyuno Manho. Namasawudu Kumase Bantama said, what makes D-Levy ridiculous is that the government cancelled D-Levy, which they think it's a burden on the citizens, only for them to make a U-turn in less than 4 months to introduce another levy. Didn't they know there was an energy sector debt that needed to be resolved? Governance is a serious business with high level of competency and honesty. Regards to former KMA boss, Honorable Sampine. Joseph Amwabe Lavegin said, good afternoon, BB. I am watching you live from Jobeka Enterprise inside Teshi Demo. Joe, thanks for joining us. Piaga said, good afternoon, BB. Dumsor levy away. Piaga, yada sibibre. So one day, yeah. Dumsor levy has been postponed. Obviously, for reasons, may sure so Ebehunu. Abino is being a bit careful because said Israel ne Iran Fontokwano Ashas, no. Say, when one train one city issue, na say crude prices, ekotija na etepra kana fe kosora. Already the one city atoso. Until if you say koso on the world market, na say emu beye den the Amagana for. And it's one of the reasons until President Mahama so tasked the finance minister and the energy minister say omo monitor near ekoso no na omo model various scenarios for Ghana. Now the strategy to go around any of such possibilities. Ubet me aba Facebook Live na odewadwen chire aba betosa enseme so a live soap and I make count for Ediama wo ewie say o pesemuna ebema onipadua no already no aye nome na ye kama na de biara da no wodi nku esra so a ategire mo a na eye alive soap na make count for the amount moisturize your skin pa sanso keep your skin smooth and nourished ma remfi say ye wo eye scent ahodo ye wo lemon scent ye wo coconut ye wo aloe vera na ye wo eye the rose variant scent bi a wo pe bia ye wo ni bi e wo alive soap emu ne bo nso eda form na broni beka say it's affordable sanso eye high quality enye semina na e ka nsu anasisi ana asane bi we no a long lasting ebeche ediamao until it meets your pocket. Kai say Alive soap is the perfect soap for everyday use. Grab an Alive soap today from any shop near you and feel the difference. Alive soap, feel fresh, feel alive. Yow. Boko die.
Nyame adom. Ja Fin na mafio nanso.
Misuma feel pa.
Dia yi.
Ye be ye wie na eja. Yi obo me knockout to ho na eja.
Se
onso beto aso.
Wo be ye ne dey. Me da ase die di kan, me nua.
Aseda nyame dia.
Oh, me da ase.
Aseda nyame dia.
Me da ase pa.
Me dia nyame nhyirawo.
Me da ase nyankopon nhyirawo. O nhyirawo no nhyirawo pa.
Amen, amen.
Wasefo.
Amen.
Onyame ma wasentre, ma wo ngododo.
Amen. Amen.
Wo bibiri.
Amen.
Wo di si be dumienu dumi na ya. Enyewe.
Sa.
Be ma de wa ba wiasi e wo se wo. Na wo na wo bi.
Ma be school fees so.
Enyewe. Nyame be ye. Nyame na wo hyira
no. Sa nyame be na wo de tete ho a.
Ya o me da se. The risk.
Yes.
And everything, when a company, you know.
It was an interesting journey, though.
Yes.
Me Kumasi Accra quite the biada, but
that day
was an interesting one. Yeah.
And Nimu, which is Munya.
Yeah. But we had a great driver too.
Yes.
Omokachro.
Let me say something at the mobile.
Debbie. Share.
Something at the mobile, the Angamudi, be 2 hours. But
I saw your phone in a boy. Yeah, but I'm telling you, I saw your phone in a bill. Come on. Ned dekeke.
Wow.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
But if you have a good driver driving behind a military convoy,
me wa desre baako.
that's more.
E was akwan na mo fa so. Se no, se omu fi se contractor na wo ye adwuma was akwan no so.
Yeah.
Efiri amasaman e ko kosinsan mu no.
Yeah.
Omu fi se omu nye biemu a ene kwan no omu ntum preko se.
Ya
close no.
Sector Minister Beka said the contractor is back on site. Minister of Roads. Anya masaman kwan ya so.
Enye sa site ho.
Sa.
Enye sa site. Say the iron no fi say ma obi and driving fast bi mu a omuntu mi empe ba bi fufuro fa
at least omo man nya mo trouble kakra
enye di yesre omu a
this man for diabetic mountains ko fa kufu bi me kwan no kra wa
yawo ano adin
me kwan no wa
di yesre say omu di iron no kwan no omu tum eye
na wa fa hia kokuma se
na ni ehu say ya tefa ba bi agu a ye pe kwan fufuro because say the city no yawo umeduru no na car na say
oh yes okoba bia also sound shocks also sound links
enye cry
obo joys ni na brang
because the module dey say nkam say car kra na nka tia to
mo eno ni asem no so say aban ba yi the expectation is anka road contractors was cited yanka you be hunu say to aso because scan wo ho no mo deda ye secure funding we ayi budumbura wini bakwan ya eno so saa kwati say amasama de ya bia oho ase ye de ensa kan projects bebre so ho kan de ni ho anyway and then appointments committee ashomodwuma say to vet 7 nominees omoko the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Now it was an interesting kind of saying time for statements.
Yes.
From the two leaders of parliament.
Yeah.
Honorable Apenyoma Kene majority leader in some of kind of who is saying.
Yeah, the me enie ni say ya medase. The tie ni say da bia ye duru no nza manyasem no mu ya omuduru baby a.
Yeah.
Obi a fi say at this point wa me antene nka ya na echina asemti. The yera Apenyoma Ken ye nyina na ye say na opese wo ka nsem na ye bi nsem na obi to ho. Minim dia wo anticipate enti wo ka to na china bi BBC abeka se e ba ye meka me bo kokko madwenkyere eda ho na nchirima se de ono na dwunumu ye no ba be kan ba betie no hu se ampa this was his position on assembly a e ba mere bi a no onu susu se we nti na sei na na ekoso ewo men ti uhwe ni attitude ewo vetting no so a uhwe ni line of questioning clearly opese o make a statement with the questions he's asking he ase akoyeso obi pese ohoro rensa na obokoko na otufu na o try say in his mind obe build bibi na eno na oye. Yes, or starting in a very soft tone, and easy.
But and then you've been monitoring vetting,
Yes.
So, send a ministerial vetting course, so the acrimony, KK, sometimes between the chairman and the ranking, yente one say questions disallowed. Now it be an intervention. So, what the ministerial vetting to talk. Supreme Court for vetting you who are sunsun ye bi wo mu ana
asem we nkame so yo vetting na umwaye no in the past all the two way ho na me hwe incidents a wodo esisi ye
bubu tables ni ade
ani ade ni nyina ewi a ekanfu abesi a na me de ekosu ne ya enzemionu na me fefrim ne mu ba akode aminyaa a kama hwe machi ansa na maka de di kan ene se ene de no emudwo
okay
na emudwo adwo no eno besi masem ba ko a minyaa a menka no ne atie ne se uhwe se de omusi conduct omu ho a ebetimi aba no say they see in the past addition bi aba aha enti omu mpese ebe te se na no de no enti na omu kono nka no omu a me ka
the committee
yeah na titru with the minority and even the chair of the committee and so what you say aha because ene unze emu a smooth kaka
okay. tension
be him and both sides agree to do away with our tension no into he na say
who ni say because of one way involved say judges nominated to the superior court who say enuntia
oh yeah can the other point nanka maybe can fi say BBC ba kunumu a me de ba tu emu na ya kama na ye said the working into we generally ne smooth pinche it is about when they construct na de no and you yes you can learn a lot from them. Now the other side who team who's here yes so we na no de na esi ya na pinche wo mu na catch them omo de ye heated pan omo do say na lawyers.
Well, now, lawyers.
Good.
In fact, Omo na controversy we want to cry they were not lawyers.
Good. Yeah. When it comes to Michelle Honorable Abenyomakins titru, I only did the minority now. Oshia ni nuanom lawyers na mfa ho ne how heated. Omo political stance ebeye. Na there's a certain mutual respect. Omo accord omo ho. And sa fraternal ade no run it through and respect or for judges no on pese obey bibi ma kwese I say even though you may agree or disagree with obi onye bibi nkwakire se ono ejina ho ebu judge bi animtia o tone kasa the body language and everything o hwa wo yi sa ade ni nyina na enye we mu nko a Ocean Crawford appear before him. And Poby Cranka or no moon ya junior everyone. The way not normal lawyers no. A quite faswa or no moon comedian corner. A ye different from non-lawyers. Maybe observation no.
Okay.
Mimi who say fraternal respect. And now person or them ma ninian we share no young lawyer bia or person odi woman and oko the other side nso the same o share anabo mama yarga any other lawyers the majority side nso omushi omunuan mo lawyers nso we me kai say justice friend say jama friend na hoy ansa no be ebe sorry na Honorable Roxanne Tafiama Pop.
Majority Chief Whip.
Yes. The contribution I know the smile in his face and everything. Even though or the majority side, unse edru omu fraternity no omu Crawford omu lawyer the learned colleagues ne sa de no a omu was nua dobi. Omu don ye pass ye ho afo no. So ho. Enti eno na ye at play.
Okay, but, so more like professional respect but you see it is so because I mean we are lawyer ni na ushia jaja obu a was what the man and also the man because obi ti say Honorable Apenyomakin or so practice it
yes
or court every now and then Honorable Dapiama po practice it or court every now and then most MPs lawyers no do na e so practice it so, when your opportunity so be vete a judge or Supreme Court. Exactly. I mean, you have to accord him that respect. But what I have also enjoyed is in spite of respect to no more, utie the quality of questions are bar. Not just say obuo no nkone baby ebekwa kodu ene me question pese me busa no se ne me pese me busa. And there is no conflict between obu ame woman and a question me pese me busa.
Anytime gum there be. But is ebi baby on. Me eno asem we but is it question be a PA for justice Jamape. and on sign the first line. They can't sign the first line. When you say judge lawyers, don't they? You know, a way of asking one same question from different angles, different ways. Not one way, not actually as a one contradictory. BBC on his own CV.
Okay.
A time I will be at school, and now call a POSEC. Na time I call university. Any time I call law school. So what I say?
Yeah.
Na date any time in Sisiso.
Okay.
In his first submission, it appeared say in Sisiso. Another penoma can in the year sa bo man ijitum say by December me kochra de 1 year. So what I say me chra de 1 year and see December. And December and the following year. And then oba ni CV kro no anso bio. Ebra wo call university. No a uwie ya obey is almost within the same period. And we sure how he conducted himself any justice no edi nkomo no na anu ye ni ba ya chire justice no be admit say yeah it is true I an oversight enti say earlier on sa na me kan e dia anya ntisa me fancy say nke you be fofura you be fofura you could to abla
kwa anyway but the big issue in APM ewo vetting mu the question of principle. Honorable Apenyomakin Ebusa say NDC for exhibited double standardness. Na asemo mo kafa Supreme Court justices are President Akufo-Addo nominee wo mo ene ne ene wo mo ye ne bo abra or raise concerns about institutional capture. And he makes the point to say at the time where appointments committee no convene no is the same time where processes cost to remove the Chief Justice.
Sure.
Na ninsusu yemu no di pefe se NDC party no ne aban no pese omu take over the judiciary utie ne nkomo ne nsemu awaka. And he makes the point and I quote or say an executive that suspends the CJ and nominates 7 is not just filling vacancies. A institutional capture, asmode etoso no. Na that question of double standardness no abetodwa yedi ho nkomo. Because uti onabo Mahama Yarega or din chechiremu so aba ne nti a omo oppose the likes of Justice Banasco Esa and a Professor Richard Frimpong. Nisusu emu no adenti na president a wo fia konwa so aka krekoto aba. Bibie no hono mwede di so obi beko retirement sisi a nti aden na o nominating kofa ko Supreme Court or meko a enche beto aba ma be president for aba. Why won't you give that president a chance to nominate ASR justices no? And
even if say vacancies na ba
vacancies impo na ba nti o raise as a defense. But you have to Ghana for any na komo. I mean, one challenge be in Supreme Court and in judiciary ni face partisanship. The perceived partisan nature of your courts. And sa perception no untimi force obi enka nkyere ne say untimi ensusu sa nkasaye within politics near politicians na keka. Some of the judges no so ruling ya womodi aba ebumu kankasan so posture while dealing with certain cases. Emma political actors ni bi elebo womo partisan. Ena me no woka say ekwakoye say even though constitution nema president no power say obe nominating call to the Supreme Court no with near hunu in the last few years no chira yanhwe ya boss bia to ho a president bi obe nominate obi to the Supreme Court to be as any panel ye be hunu no with partisan lens. Sa executive decision no will be viewed as politically motivated because of near yakaka over the years ever similar actions home. But the way in constitution ni a ma president no kwan say obe nominate in call for and judges to the Supreme Court. The question has always been say then trimupone tachiri. The other question has also been said, adena the padodo way, number way, and what they call Supreme Court. And that question came up, and President Akufo-Addo nominated about 9 judges. And John Mahama has nominated 7. Meanwhile, they raised issues about the 9 Akufo-Addo nominated. Emma Omo rejected emu 2. In fact, I need to check the history of Savetin. We say whether we have had Supreme Court nominees, Parliament are rejected one to this level, a whopping 2. And see, we need to check the history to check whether a idea SCCA. But for 2 nominees of the president to be rejected, no, they are quite strong. I would love to hear the NDC majority as to the specific reasons in these 2. Banasco Esa, any Professor Richard Frimpong, Omo rejected, Omo Nomuji, Omo Makano, Etumu. And we need to bring this conversation up because he talks about posterity. He talks about dachi. He talks about Esa Yecha Edia Tohonomo. Yebusese, has the judiciary been tainted in any way by political actors, knowing the judiciary as it is today? Ana ubetimi aba Facebook Live na what the wadwen kire na ba na yakenkan e de ama wo
Bibi.
And before you come in, Pedro Maldina Cruz say or say watching the best show live and clear inside Indianapolis, Kumasi, Tanoso, Kesben Junction. Yadasi Bebre, Pedro we're joining live on Facebook. ML Smith, good afternoon to you and thanks for joining us as well live on Facebook. Yow.
Bibi, that's that question not there. A question you would do, but I think that if we be sincere to ourselves. Yeah. Now, yes, the enemy and politicians, they know what Ghana. Answering this question is very, very easy. In a sense that the EpaHoaDaben and perceived to be in alignment with the Supreme Court. And said they now can over the years and some say obi EpaHoaDaben pe it is perceived to say on the Supreme Court for anamuntu. And Aba bedruha the views and the say of the largest opposition party OCC MPP no clear say the sitting president John Dramani Mahama bibia to have control over the judiciary. It's only attempting to let the world know, even trying to, tickle the minds of Ngofo nominating the media, Ghanaians in general, to have a look at how and the Supreme Court be was it now? You where the bisa now the Supreme Court or say they have abdicated their constitutional duties, and that
when it matters
most, and that what he say that act of cowardice cannot go ahead and
that was referring to the way our Chief Justice,
exactly,
in free office,
exactly. And he built a point to say that when it comes to Omumubi, say Supreme Court no be sorry, na defending no, na ensem be drew her as a the koso a ebe ha omu at the apex court of the land no, omu etihodin as a esuro enihu na me ne word no. Kazo be a coward and name midu. So what I say, Ohufuo. My a hufuo. Na Moho and Adiana Buba no monitia. And so I said, dear Moo ye. So what I say, na oka amana I say, Mamma na home and ye may be a cosono and ye political calculation tinedo call. But constitutional strength, dear Mamma, or somebody Yamojuma as an independent a organ of government no enunti and was it o share sa kasa no ni said ye o si katwi a anya obi na ebe ka kire wo say from omumu side omunyi gidie and omugidie wo mu no they are hoping say ebeye better chance said yes.
It clearly Ninsem Kaino is also deepening the whole partisan perception of the judiciary.
Exactly.
Or indirectly. Seems say so now yes, say moi no mujidie the mo koho the mo mukwe emrana adwuma. And the comparison and the issues he raised about near NDC for Kanfa President Akufo-Addo the nominees ho no clearly sounds like and also hit back at the NDC for nominating 7.
Exactly.
And therefore, what Ghana for advances to say, one so park court in Ibio.
Same questions went to one of the nominees, Justice Jamefe, on the number that has to be in the Supreme Court and whether he believes a narrative and a one thing about 2 justices are. Omu nomination, no, and go through how he feels about it. And but I need not to say the Lord Justice clever. I mean, some of these questions traps on their own. It is one way now we are ordinary to see a movie now kokoyiano ekofan fast mama. And when Nipano me tie Justice Jamefe said you see kan anti justice we na sa bonds and sembi otna ho. You can see the level of wisdom and how to approach some of these tricky questions.
Or preside over the
commission
Brazil. And he's a judge. I think so during that hearings, no can be or say or catch a justice. In fact, a lawyer Tadio say too many technicalities spoil cases.
That's it.
So that's it. That's so you're too technical.
You spoil the cases. And me tie no and then no. I feel like somebody like that deserves to be in the Supreme Court. What do you say? And who's that? They said the Honorable Mama Yaga was caught unaware with the script from the minority leader. Only obi you can see in the panel or well prepared. Na oba. Now this is where the normal the person I is already a learned person. Indeed, there's no need for me to prepare anything na okonna bibi sa ba betom na sebi what you know no asembesi so just and me share justice no ne responses to some of these very critical and technical questions e be the man no e be bordering on the size of what's called Supreme Court and whether office or no a beneficiary of sa dedena a course the perceived attempt by the current administration say omubetimi afan crofobia ababegu Supreme Court na ono Justice Jamefe aye beneficiary no the answers the Lord Justice Edemaye no I mean we have a lot to learn from them near the obuo any ade ebemu but you see it can't take away from the fact that was a building yeah, judiciary because there's so many brains and you can say you're politicizing adwena sa justices ne lawyers ni ebi wono ebebo man pi si ama amanyosem answer no me at a point I feel like sometimes some of them are call retirement they should sit for us to give out some questions no matter no boa o man no nchichire na bibi o question no MPP there MPP wo hoi sesi bibia ni wiase a president Mahama beye
akokrosa chakoma enye ne fed
wo judiciary no
ehu ebe
o mo koda o mbekata o mo ani si yada on the judiciary misisu bio MPP wo hoi bibia ni wiase a under the leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama President Mahama beye and our judiciary ni beye MPP for say ya koda same way dey da court we dey ya da ya kata ya ni etu nkromo MPP for nye sa de no da because say omu beka say omu beji omu adinti asem no the Supreme Court ebe ya omu say ne ya to aba no go pick ballot box until they won't when the tables turn the same thing say they over the years no so what you say and even on social media binum say oh Attorney General no or this is what they are alleging on social media. So I shouldn't be re-echoing it here. But Omumubi as a Attorney General press conference, you know, when you bring say I don't want court or train say justice in Nibu ha you be clear no ma court for nafi ya pa na more cases in Nibu. You understand? So Jidie no me share Justice Jamafe and how he's handling some of these critical questions. Na menya I'm loving the man. Na and so Jidie no nyo. Say what you say. Na Jidie no from a major political party to say MPP anyhow because they feel say omumubi. Now when the question goes to him say you are a beneficiary of some of ensemi bia political party and am so ama and there nomination ya be ekeka ye enomni ade. I mean, he answered that, who am I to say that I'm a beneficiary? I don't want to take it. I'm a beneficiary of what? Whoever feels I qualify, once the nomination has come, I'm not listening to anything and no. And I make refreshing to hear. So what I say, and he say, yeah, Becca, MPP for say, NDC for say, Becca. Let our perception remain. But let's go to court prepared. Okay. Let's do all the investigations. Let's gather the right evidence. Let's back them with the law. And I love that point when Justice Jamafe at one point told Yero Apenyomakin said, the law is a law. And I think that had to do with 1 term or 2 term. On say, Honorable Apenyomakin in all the suspicions of Muwono, any statement to make here, no, ocean line of questioning now, or but lawyers now say, or traverse or try to find answers to all the questions that linger on their minds. Say, another term for President Mama or the new rural, you will not see so clear, but San or do rural.
Or scanning or peculiar thoughts on various things. Now, as we speak, I've been asking myself, say, how many judges per are allowed on the Supreme Court?
There's no ceiling.
There is no ceiling. The law talks about a minimum of 9. But it doesn't give a maximum. Figure. Until subject to the discretion of Mampeni or the number of judges are Odiomo Betuso. But isn't that recipe for chaos and recipe for influence? Said the amount for be na. In some jurisdictions, omo akape the number of judges a bit me Supreme Court or so. And so in some jurisdictions, 15. You only replace when you plan to do retirement. In our case, we'll be free Supreme Court. I just say we'll do retirement. And I say yadi into 1 mean to an ejumaso. And I say we'll be at the petition of common Mampeni said the young who know in the case of the Chief Justice. Now your trigger processes not to remove whoever na wants mwaba. Until then, it just any panel the 70. I will call retirement and I say uwu abefano edinako. But the challenge we have, you need a ceiling as to the number of justices a bit medium Supreme Court. Me no say there are 16 Supreme Court justices. 16 Supreme Court justices. As of today, 16 Supreme Court justices. Ena President Mahama nominated 7.
So we go through.
What we are not sure is whether a bill will be rejected, like we saw in the case of.
No, but anybody to be rejected
because of the numbers. I mean, time when we rejected Banasco is signing Professor Richard Frempong. Now it was 137, 137, and so the minority had the numbers, and then micro
So
minority.
they are all going through. The intro 23
and say 23 na
very soon you be 23.
23 Supreme Court justices.
The one I have listened to deserves to be there.
Media, it is not even about who deserves to be there. I'm sure that there are a lot of judges are qualified to be there.
Yes.
But question is, how many can we continue to contain? Question me busa Ghana for ne say, and now me know what I say. There are 16 Supreme Court justices. President Mahama nominee 7 ebeka ho a ebe 23. Is that how we want to go? And sa 23 na yeba benya no. Yeba benya eson faso na in terms of justice delivery. Because Ghana for expectations be as to nyomo free judiciary no. It is not about the sheer numbers. It's about the quality of justice I had them for.
Exactly.
And don't also forget, say, politics and you have political intentions behind the nominations. And won't mean free mu. We free mu ye. Saying tia President Kufuor a nominee 9. President Mahama de 7 kono. We politics free mu ye. We partisanship free mu ye. E kan hu bi pa e na wo mo park o mo di o mo akọ. But then 23 justices of the Supreme Court in Ebabenya. Bibusa wa wutie mi ene se na ma no enso dodo. Me no kai na ma ne bi betimi aba be ka ho because ceiling
obi nso betimi aba nominate another 20.
Oh yes.
Obi nso betimi the 20
aba be ka ho because
opesu
what the executive power dey.
Because you see, don't forget, as of the time, now you count the size of government, this debate. And then every the size of government at the judiciary. In fact, the Supreme Court justice. Okay, those days when you're a Jumembu fraud, one thing I know key, net about the number of ministers I appointed and the justification for that. What you say? Now you're making references to your friend say one constitution na mandate say you be foul. You can ya onto President Akufo-Addo ba na boom. Pejam. Whom any a number be anybody could even imagine. So what you say? And the President Mama ba you no aba but on va be been to ho mrebi meto. What you say? And if I may quote from Justice Jamafe, I see the law is the law.
The law is the law, he said. I want to engage a lawyer na yinsuan de kakra na ewie. Sam komoya yedi ya yenkwa homano so ne lawyer Leonard Cedro Indian komo kakra. Was it Cedro? Okay. Leonard Cedro a private legal practitioner, and we're joining our homano so to help us unpack and understand some of the things also within our judiciary. Council Timinka, happy FM Suni Memoaha, and thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Council. How bad is your tree?
My tree is very over 100.
Very terrible, eh?
Yeah.
We'll manage. My name is DSN. Ultimately, where Appointments Committee of Parliament. Commencement of vetting of a Supreme Court justices na ultimi monitor kakra.
Yes.
Okay. Mami pick your initial impression so far, the conduct of the panel members and the nominee who appeared before the panel today. Your general thoughts of the process today.
Well, the nominees are doing well. But Mr. Afenemaken is trying to politicize them. Everything should not be NDC entity. You see? Meaning that judges trying to seek their opinion on issues that are political. I don't think that's how relevant as a man.
Hello, Council. I'm having a terrible feedback in your line. It appears that your area is very windy. If you are driving, kindly spare us some few minutes so we go through this quickly.
Okay, so go ahead.
Okay, so your point is that the nominee who appeared before them today delivered or justifiably performed, but your concern has to do with the Honorable Apenyo Makin, and you raised the concern about politicization. If you can explain further, I would be glad.
You see, I watched the vetting my Lord Daniel at length. And I also watched the question and answer session between the minority leader and the judge. And it appears to me that the minority leader trying to score political points is trying to pin him down on vexed political issues.
Okay.
Last year, there were 2 justices who were vetted, but they were not
approved
because of the numbers in parliament and the political atmosphere. So when somebody is nominated and brought before the appointment committee, there is no need to try and embarrass the new judge who has been nominated about the issues pertaining to those who are not approved. You see? So, other than that, I think it's a good exercise.
But one would say that, I mean, these judges going to sit on the Supreme Court would be dealing with very political cases. Whether they like it or not, political meanings will be read into their judgments. And so they're already within the arena of politics, and picking their thoughts on political happenings would not hurt that much.
The problem in this country is that we pigeonhole people into political coloration. You express an opinion and immediately you are made to look a certain way. But the nature of the law is such that when a case comes before a court, about 3 things are looked at: the evidence, the law, and the exigencies of the time. When we talk about the Supreme Court, you see, the lower court, the evidence, and the law. But when it comes to Supreme Court, you're looking at the evidence, you're looking at the law, you're looking at the policy rationale at a particular time. So a judge can even give a certain answer, but when he or she gets to the bench, will do otherwise. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
When Constitutional Chief Justice was being vetted, she said she was a textualist, that she always wants to look at the text and stay with the text. Unless there was ambiguity, then she would depart to the second stage of interpretation. But when we came to litigation about those members of parliament whose seats were declared vacant, the Constitution provided expressly that if you came to parliament on a party ticket and you left that party, then your seat will be declared vacant. She didn't follow the textualist approach she said she was. So you cannot even listen to a judge answer questions at vetting and think that that is going to be the end of the road. When the person gets there, the exigencies of the time will determine how the person answers the questions in relation to something.
Interesting thought there. Would you let me reflect to you a statement made by the Honorable Minority Leader and ask my question. And I quote, an executive that suspends the CJ and nominates 7 is not just filling vacancies. It is institutional capture. He makes the point that during President Akufo-Addo's time, the NDC made a lot of political capital out of the criticism of President Akufo-Addo's nomination of 9 judges to the Supreme Court. They raised issues about he packing the court and bloating the bench. Today, John Mahama is in power and is appointing or nominating 7 to join the previously nominated bloated number. If the minority leader raises such a matter on the occasion of the nomination or vetting of Justice Jamepe, will he not be spot on and right, both in history and in politics, to raise this matter?
Because I'm speaking as a lawyer, let me state the law.
Okay. And
I'll give you a scenario from the law.
Mm.
And I'll ask you a question at the end. Depending on your answer, you have answered yourself. The Supreme Court has a number of jurisdictions. One of them is appellate jurisdiction. What is the appellate jurisdiction? It means appeals from lower court.
Mm.
Every case which begins in the High Court, which is not an election-related matter, has an automatic right of appeal up to the Supreme Court.
True.
That's number one.
Yeah.
We have so many High Courts in Ghana, perhaps more than 160 to 180. So it means that if any case is before a High Court, it has a potential to go out of right to the Supreme Court and appeal.
Mm.
And we have two categories of appeal. We have interlocutory appeals and we have final appeals. Interlocutory appeals, when in a matter and there is a ruling that I'm not happy about, you can appeal against it, even though the case is not over. Final appeal is when judgment is delivered, and then I appeal. So, whenever there is an interlocutory appeal or a final appeal from all the High Court, there is an automatic right for them to terminate at the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
So you have 180 judges. Let's say in the High Court, and all those appeals, interlocutory and final, are going to Supreme Court, made up of only 15 or 18 judges. What do you think will happen?
That's a lot of work for them.
Apart from that, all appeals in chieftaincy matters from the traditional council, regional house of chiefs, national house of chiefs, also terminate at the Supreme Court. And there are several chieftaincy issues in Ghana, and all of them have the potential to end up in the Supreme Court. That is another appellate jurisdiction. Then we talk about supervisory jurisdiction. So the High Court and the Court of Appeal. Under certain instances, you can go straight to the Supreme Court to quash whatever decisions them. That's one tool. You have several High Courts, several Court of Appeal, maybe several, because there are many judges. But all go to the Supreme Court. Then we look at enforcement of the Constitution, interpretation of the Constitution, when it comes to documents which are of national security. So the Supreme Court has several things it does. So for me, if you ask me, we should have not less than at least 30 justices at the Supreme Court.
We should not have. We should not have not less than 30 justices at the Supreme Court, you say?
Yeah, okay. The minimum. We should have 30.
Now, you have painted to me and my listeners the job that awaits the Supreme Court, or the enormity of work they are saddled with, looking at it from the lower courts up to the Supreme Court. It then beats my understanding why people who understand the law and have practiced within our law courts were complaining about the nominations of the former president to the Supreme Court. And if you recall, the suspended Chief Justice wrote a letter to the then President Danado indicating that the enormity of work was such that she would need more hands to support her, and nominated 5 people for consideration anytime the president thought of increasing the number. So you have lawyers in Parliament who know the challenge of the Supreme Court in terms of numbers, but they raised hell about the nominations made by President Akufo-Addo to the Supreme Court. Today, they are in power and they are nominating 7. Don't you see political contradiction in there?
I think there was a reason getting watched about those nominations, because the quality of judgment in political cases left much to be desired. If you had a Supreme Court that had and ruled that birth certificate does not show a person's nationality. Did that make sense to you? Take a look at your birth certificate. Don't you have nationality? The birth certificate is what we use for Ghana card. It's what we use for our passport. In fact, it is a primary document for all other things we do when it comes to nationality. But the Supreme Court, for whatever reason, thought it didn't want to invalidate the whole register of the electoral to rule that birth certificate did not determine a person's nationality. The issue I just mentioned about a person coming on the party state and whilst in power, whilst in parliament, going to another party or deciding not to do business, deciding manifestly to join another party. The text of the Constitution is clear that once you do that, you vacate your seat. The Speaker ruled accordingly. But the Supreme Court, without listening to the other side, made a contrary ruling. So you see, when you have a president who appointed judges and their judgments were manifestly per inquirium, or is it per inquirium? These are judgments that do not accord with the law. That these are judgments that fly in the face of precedent and the law, the text. So when you have such judgments coming from the Supreme Court, people will be worried that if the same person appointed more justices, there will be more of such judgments.
So do you correct that by nominating 7 more? Is the question about numbers or quality of justice?
I've just told you that the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court in appellate matters, in constitutional matters, in supervisory jurisdiction, is broad. And there are a lot of justices below whose appeals get to the Supreme Court. Even circuit court, where you have a civil matter and a circuit court, you can go to Supreme Court if you seek leave of the Court of Appeal. Criminal matters, you can get to the Supreme Court. So go back to the work that is to be done. Don't cocoon yourself into the politics of.
Hello?
Yes, I have finished. If you have another question, ask.
I missed the last bit of your statement.
I'm saying that I've told you that there is a lot of work to be done in terms of the jurisdiction of the court. You see,
but
there are several appeals, several certiorari, several matters that have to do with Supreme Court jurisdiction.
And so we need more people.
We need more people.
Okay. But how do we address the quality of justice issues you refer to? You make mention of the Supreme Court ruling on birth certificates and national ID. You describe it as one that is outside of the law, so to speak. You pinpointed certain cases that the Supreme Court ruled on that creates a certain partisan perception of them. We are getting the numbers to deal with the various work they have to do. What about the quality of justice, some of which you have responded to or pointed to? How do we deal with them as well, together with having all the numbers?
Yeah, so I would say that all the justices who are need to know that once that it is their judicial oath. It is not about President Mahama or whoever appointed them. You see, when a thing is done, must matter courage and faith. So that is how it be. So I believe that every person should not only end up in the other arms of government. When you are appointed by the entity, and there is a judgment, and we think that with the law and evidence, the NDC should not win, good against the NDC. That is how it should be.
My very last question to you has to do with the nature of the Constitution regarding the number of justices we can have on the Supreme Court. There isn't a ceiling, and you have even suggested that having not less than 30 people on the Supreme Court would suffice. Question is, if you look at our political terrain and what politicians seek to do with the judiciary and the extent to which the executive may want to have some influence over the judiciary, have we not created a situation for ourselves where the uncapped nature of the number of people who can sit on the Supreme Court can create some challenges for us going forward?
I have said already that we need at least 30 justices. You see, about 10 years ago, we didn't have a high court in Nsawam. Currently, we have 3 high courts in Nsawam. We didn't have high court in Kibi. Now we have high court in Kibi. We have high court in Tumanya. High court in Kumasi Probo. High court in Amasama. Amasama has 4 high courts.
Okay.
The morning after. So to Miniba. So I'm just giving you a brief history. 10 years ago, we didn't have those high courts. But now we have them. And if you go to other regions, you have more high courts. So if you have more high courts at the base, and cases that emanate from those high courts have automatic right of going to the Supreme Court. Why do you want us to come? Do you want the justices that at their time? So we actually need more so that you can also rest. And that the quality of judgment will reflect in the decisions they make. But where there are so many cases, they will be overwhelmed and give you 5-page, 6-page judgment. You see, or select as a few. The cases must be able to support. Some of them, judgment was delivered after 4 years because of what? Pressure from the Supreme Court. So that's the point I'm making. That we actually need to appoint more. But when they get there, we should forget about the parties that appointed them. We should use the law and the evidence.
Very well. Council, I would thank you very much for your time this afternoon and tell you we appreciate it so much. Thank you so much. Leonard Sedro, a private legal practitioner, and no akasa a lawyer ni or chenadwene ewo enejumedi course before the Appointments Committee of Parliament omo evete a justice Jamepe. There are a lot more other justices omobe appear before the Appointments Committee, but the issue of the number of Supreme Court justices ebenya ewo Supreme Court hono is a question about apene obekaya abanda dani mu no efa enipedi bi ko hono kodane nsem bebre ene ndisi nso aba omode 7 akoka wona na mebusa se ehu behia se yede ceiling bi beto so se be ya anka enkoba se president bi aba eno ane se o park Supreme Court na oso no de ankonya ekranka beye aduasa ye Supreme Court justices beye aduasa mpo a anka beboa na asem ne se adwuma wo Supreme Court no edoso Supreme Court na adwuma ne bebre ye nkrabata bebre na ohwe ye court nketo na ye wo no ne dodo na ohwe nipa dodo a eti Supreme Court a na chese eyade a adwuma na doso amom isane se odi asem court high court na wante wo ho ase na okọ appeals court na wante wo ho ase a sa case na sha ase free high court no ana lower court no ekwa kopie Supreme Court nti high court no doso e no kire high court ni bia so na Zama Saman he mentioned ewo 5 high courts in Sawom kaneno na omo courts omo no na omo high courts omo no na wo form e na akosoro so many high courts bebre into more high courts means there were more potential cases ebeko Supreme Court for interpretation enti obehia enipa dodo a se adwuma no dodo na no eba omo betimi aye osanso eka eba about the politicization of in courts in the Supreme Court ho asem ena o kire se enye just numbers no na mumu no adwuma na wo mo ye na muduro nso so eka ho bi ena cite Emra Supreme Court eka say yen birth certificate intimi nye enough document to identify a Ghanaian ono kira saa de no court bi obeka saa asem ni bia no na chese clearly no de mra na to nchen ena o kana adwene na saa ne mani nyina ka ho bi ene ma manfo susu se bia Supreme Court for na judge for it Supreme Court no so no omo ye party bi adwuma na se omo ye obi bidding and udi kan say honorable Apenyo Makin in spite of say Justice Jamepe deliver and say or chire ni nsemu yie no honorable Apenyo Makin utie ne kasemu ana say or ye politics through the questions ne nsem bia okekaye eno ne ma ye de kopie mu say na NDC for so wo opposition o masemo ne say adena President Akufo-Addo park Supreme Court or the MPP for kwakugu o say no maba omo so edi nipa 7 akwakoka ho enye contradiction ni e no kire say wodi kanka say Supreme Court adwuma ne do so omadwuma ne de ebebre inti dodo na akọho eye na me chene say inti ne problem with quality of justice na eno na oka ho asem no nso no ekwan be ne befa so a de betimi address saa de no beyond the numbers no kire say ene o sa judge for na ekọ no mu hunu say eye oman adwuma no mkọ na nya ndisi adwuma yekọ election na NDC elusu na hwe mmara ne se ne etie na mmara ne kire pepe evidence da ho nyina kire se NDC elusu a emfa ho se President Mahama ne nominate o ye judge a e wo so otimi di wutirim na do na nsi form na o ka se NDC for mo na mo di ntwo MPP for mo na mo wini emfa ho ne no nominate o nti si ebenya quality justice ne de eno ebegina eye wono a wo mo ekwakotena eye emra no so no mahwe ema aye adwuma opani amene ne kasa eye Leonard Sedjuro oye lawyer ni oye manga na yimu yeah
bibi so we there was generally can say titinanke general paper and then me general paper no from Justice Jamepe and I was like that general paper let me find out what it was. Okay. Nenko for tro. Nah, I'm say those is secondary school. Nah, hey paper I'm say nah. Me be around and say nenko for the Jew many year pa. Ewo more resource. Now, I'm say we are getting there. We are getting to a point where very soon ubehun lawyer be na ne party color bonichi and I judge be because depending on the nipakro no believe in and no obefa or the ebeka asem no fi say utie nkomo no say the AC koso a say ye ka say o men ye MPP lawyers ye NDC lawyers and to an extent they are attempting say omo bellable judge bia judgment o kona anye ya depending on the nasembo wenim any baby or do beko the other side it's clear difficult for us to find a way to do away with Adien. I thought only a lawyer he can say na o complaining of some judgment be a buyer no nanka on to the line of say politicians na takasi na eno was the case inti DNT na any justification for somebody to appoint new justices so just na the same person had earlier on indicated say Supreme Court nkanya bia na yenya 30 justices wo minimum onu ceiling no na dwenkyere meboa. The same person had issues with somebody's nomination of 9 and na far less than onu minimum threshold no so what I say and then again when asked then ye adena ye beden ye cure sa de na wo kan earlier on say be koye party adwuma any ade no or say that one there we have to hope that the justices no where do we put that because say Supreme Court justices say what was say first no na ozi Supreme Court say I'm running say the minimum of say 9
minimum of 9
what dream as a lawyer the minimum should be 30 and no crown require a constitutional changes me boy for us to put it there.
Say Rebecca here.
Tio. Minimum no it is stipulated in the constitution.
9, yes.
If you
At
want
least
to,
9.
At least 9. And it means that on no drink, if you want to go by that, we need to make constitutional changes. Because
to make it at least 30.
30. What do you say? And the same person obi issues with number will be appointed. I far less than giving a Juma was here for the Supreme Court. I was Omoye. And no, say Juma na wo na obi appointee bi beka ho. Then no see who look at cases be bedi ya. E say nipa no appointee you know political. How do we cure that so there? We say a new justice and they told the justice. So young fan to
and no, Alexander Kobe Bryant today a message about live on Facebook. Because good afternoon, BB. It's so obvious that most Ghanaians don't have patience as well as deep reasoning. We were here when the NDC accused the NPP of packing the courts with NPP sympathizers, and you want the NDC to file a case in the hands of such judges? No. So Ghanaians should wait till the 7 judges are sworn in. Okay. I see. Interesting thoughts there.
No, what is he saying?
Also, what is he saying? What's in your hand NDC for accusing MPP for some park courts no? With MPP sympathizers. Now, yeah, per se, yeah, trauma NDC for say you want the NDC to file a case in the hands of such judges. Say now you say Attorney General Daben no court with the press conferences now.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
His point is that say NPP sympathizers are over to Supreme Court to so. Why would NDC force send their cases there? Because Omunim justice. In Tomo Trama 7 now, President are nominated to one office and send on cases are court.
So therefore, who's the Attorney General?
But that can't
press conference.
That can't work because answer case be Supreme Court no. Now I travel through the lower courts. I just say a straightforward constitutional interpretation matter, and I go straight to the Supreme Court. But yes, the chrono to be so. Yeah, the need say or High Court. High Court to one for no one ten on one say or that prison and na judge na lawyer for appeals court. One more kwa pre say yes judgment no. Anko yama na appeals court and son no Supreme Court. Enti even if say NDC 4 chairman 7, they don't need to wait for 7 judges to go to Supreme Court and sana omudo obi akọ asem dibia so mo kwa kodi na asem. Enti I know that's not how it works.
Justice Jamape was of an opinion
that
some criminal matters must not travel more than 3 months.
And if you no.
Yes, he had an opinion.
But say he's a judge. He knows.
Yes.
Parties to a case say delay cases.
and what kind of adjournment lawyers say me and we let us be banned and all these
strategies.
Yeah, and well, maybe you did twice.
Okay, Mamin kind some other messages. Godwin Nuchi say Jemima, young Kodi City in Common IMF and Common Why now. Yenti and free enough yenti see other conversations more. Godwin Nuchi say good afternoon, BB. This afternoon, the life and livelihood of my people at the Podo electoral area in the North Tongue district are in danger. The only river in the area, River Alabo, has overflown its boundaries, destroying farms and threatening the life of people. All roads leading to Juapong have been cut off, leaving the people very distressed. Please, we call on NADMO and the good people of Ghana to come to our aid. Godwin Kwame Nuchi, Podo electoral area North Tongue assembly member. I wish you could reach out to him.
Yeah, let's get his contact. Please, on DM.
Yes, if you can send us your message in our DM, we need your number, and we want to understand situation. He said na yetimi edi ho nkomo. So that's about that. Abi, if you can contact him for us, Godwin Uchi, yɛhwɛ sɛ yɛbɛtumi afrɛ no na yɛhu how bad the situation is, but flood asɛm a yɛka wɔ ho ya me say Noah mmerɛ no ɛbɛsɛn si biem
deɛ ɛkɔ yi deɛ
because of galamsey ne nsɛm a yɛkɔ so no Noah mmerɛ no ɛbɛsɛn nyɛ si biem because you see ɛnɛ na secondary ayiri yo soko de enso ayiri paa ɛna yɛte sɛ Northtown enso so yiri we nya akosombo VR for no mo ebia o mo spillway o enye no ɛna kreti ɛyɛ saa problem no enye no nti no clearly no
nature
nsuo na ɛtotɔ no na me maka sɛ yenyina yie ne ehwe biribi yie the way a yetutu kuro ni mu no yetutu asase no because of galamsey no ya divert nsuo ni bebree kwan na nsu kɛseɛ bi bɛtɔ mmiri bi a wahu ɛbɛyɛ fɛ kɛkɛ hwɛ an area like Tetegu sɛ wonam hɔ no mu a ɛyɛ ahwɛ Tetegu yie ɛda ɛpo no bɛ rise just by a meter yaw just by 1 meter
ɛbɛ ha adwen
ɛbɛyɛ te sɛ tsunami na ɛyɛ ayehunu wɔ CNN so no ɛbɛ wash the entire community away. We are sitting by these things. 989 FM EpaHoaDaben dwumadie enie na ene emese madika ka kyerɛ sɛ Ghana any IMF reach a staff level agreement. First of all, what does it really mean? Now, staff level agreement I reach, you know, I paved the way for the release of $370 million by IMF board. Sa $370 million, you know, ebi kase baba be changing the dynamics as far as the CD and the dollar is concerned. Ebe make impact on the economy. Yanko ni nkosua de kakra ni mbusemu na yehwe se 370 million yi. Eya hia. Ene me ka ho asemu na me ni obi di hu komo se na se kwa be despite ne car museum ya wasi cars dodo esi wo kora keka bobo 370 million we ebe bro. Ena ye su age wo IMF ho. Well, Dr. Evans Nunu, a economist. Brano, oboyen, ema yesua de. Doc, otimi nka happy suni memo aha.
Yenia.
Boko de.
Nyame adu pepom chomo so e.
Oba de adaroma ye ho de ne wa ha. Mami mbusa se obi te say Ghana reach a staff level agreement with IMF. Na edi asempa ne e pa kire.
De e pa hye nyina ne se IMF no enam sɛ adwumakuo no nyinaa entumi enko amanaman na ɛka ho no ɛno ɔmo ni nsawoso anase ɛno ɔmo ni nnwuma ni nti no ɔmo yi anamsifo a nke bɛka sɛ delegate bi na saa delegate no ɛne ɔman na akɔhu ɔmo sɛ ɔmo hia mo anase ɔmo pɛ sɛ ɔmo no ɔmo tu egyina bi no adwene ho nti no ɔmo ba beebi sɛ Ghana ebia finance minister, ebia Bank of Ghana governor, any other reps are about the sikasem na mind to bia. Ebia na because of your energy sector areas, you know, the energy ministers who mo ebeboa. Into all the relevant stakeholders, no. Na Ghana so up house and impaired to sano. Na woman IMF paying for the Asia. Na woman edikai I pense when we say Ghana foreign craft emo to saying womu dwumadie to saying na womu nyina akobenkro agye atum womu gituma na womu no e de kɔ IMF executive board no na womu so approve nti the staff level agreement no the first level of the whole thing general no the practical fact on the ground together with the nation as a country at stake, you know. Na wamujituma na IMF staff no. Said the unity no. Wamo de call IMF or na executive board no approve. In this womunya staff level agreement, no pona executive board no approve. As agreement na ebogos. But in pay bebre no, and I'm say womo akasa staff aka ho. And agreement ne benti. In pay bebre no, all things being equal, ya no mo tadi dijuma.
Can Bible busa say has there been a time where staff level agreement has been reached and so board no abogua omo approve isika was nyana?
The mimi say okay, Zimbabwe, any a few other countries are. We must reach staff agreement. A question more than Emada.
Okay.
Na me name Sabiana, Womusu Babino, and Tresse, Womunya, discipline on Baye. Young funny say, Ghana said that was Enka, your restructure your electricity tariff, energy sector. No, and as Obasha, maybe a best no, Abani, yes, and Koyaku Bibima. They numbers make out because already no electricity no time can answer. It's no Abani. Aban we also buy ye, so Obasha. Because the one city levy be eba.
Yeah.
The beya. Obet media share energy sector areas near there, but was actually a sign. It be say no, almost because Nankrof as almost yeah, Danko Dada way. It's about the sana almost between actually Germany, I think, Chakra.
Okay.
But all the same, yeah, in our case, I think that the government has proven beyond reasonable doubt, say, yeah, one more person back to fiscal consolidation. The IMF, one more can put a do maybe a yakwa, one be my.
Okay.
But other countries go staff level agreements, no more reach all right, but it may check beyond reasonable measure. And it's something I think that if you me pay for to use no amano and any woman who so these are some of the dynamics.
And so here Ghana your history with the IMF, especially under this very ECF now. Yetimenya ya staff level agreements be miensa ni nyina no review na positive. So most likely the fourth one too will be positive. But we are expecting $370 million from the IMF in its fourth tranche. Question is, 370 million ye de be den na the significance ye den impact be ni benya we economy no so under the ECF I homes is here.
All right, but that's so obviously IMF one angasa already no share before one moment standard credit facility nangasa na ye nyina ye gina sikan ba ye de be ye because na balance of payment support eka ho na budgetary support eka ho so many things we just bia yen economy ni na enyem one say it will add on to our reserves.
Okay.
Because already the last time I checked na exchange rate now around 10.5 for baby. Na government and also so bekaya or you imagine say go below 10.5 all things being equal. And likely say the government wouldn't want to release the air balloon into the economy because pumping into the economy, exchange rate it will improve better. I mean, citizens may appreciate it more. And the idea na abano at the kind of reserves no, and I say be a strategic places be, and I say be a say you pressing areas be where say or the settle no maybe a you know say energy sector you cry struggle. So these are some of the dynamics. It's permissible say abandon the bishop be a whole here, may you sure or the bishop. But obviously, cafes like America say a bebuama cities in 1809 so. But Sabina don't want us to be a Jumadia. And then actually say already no the minimum the range or set or you're within it. They are likely say it to be added to our reserves. Already we are piling up more reserves. I would be surprised that it to be there. And strategically, if there is a place, a sector here, then the government will pump it there.
Now, sir, 370 million we giving the city more strength because of the way Bank of Ghana be uses can be also almost the kind of reserve. But the question is, your dollar reserves be how does it benefit Ghana? And so dollar reserves na intimi ma o city no enya hoden further. Na reserve no or reserve no for the so far so saying.
Okay, so if we do extrapolation, trend analysis, I'll be say I buy from time to time. Let me first say that FX fluctuating is very volatile. And you cannot be too sure about the future.
Okay.
Now, anytime when the reserves say exchange rate that's traders, any importers, all over the economy, will be a complainer and why helpless.
Okay.
Because when the reserves are, what they be manage it? Because you can manage it for a while at least. So they be over to me ama ejina kakra na wahyehyɛ no ma yie.
Yeah.
For example, say dollars no ɛhyɛ aseɛ sɛ epagya no mu ɛkwa na ɛkwa. It only means say dollar short away economy because purely supply and demand factors, all things being equal.
Sure.
Unless because we are our exchange rate regime no a floating one, which means the market forces determine how the exchange rate should move. But obviously, Bank of Ghana is mandated to stabilize prices, including the exchange rate. It obviously say and they intervene. The government intervenes through the Bank of Ghana. So, but then that means that you should have the FX muscle to intervene appropriately.
Okay.
It is here now a normal as a eco no ebiana ankwenesa. There's currently a dynamic there Iran
Israel. Yeah.
Tension now air possible. It already no obia baby I alert a baby as I said you be alert. Then you be external shock no and destabilize the economy no to a containable extent.
Okay.
Non-containable extent. Into a baby no bema near the wire vigilant. Into obviously there more dollars in your reserves. Ebia 4 months cover import cover ni over. Now say ebia system no abba in such a way say currency no depreciate here. Dollars na boost this now. You just pump more dollars into the system. Once you release more and more dollars into the system,
okay.
Now to me stabilize it.
So
obviously, and all things being equal, market forces demand and supply. So if it's about dollars appreciating, it means that people are demanding more dollars, but the dollar in supply is not matching up to that.
Okay.
And if you have more, you just pump it into the economy to match it up to the level of demand. Now stabilize it. So if woman here for more than the demander, I better drop it. Nothing is not appreciated. And that is why how come you more gold now? Food will cost over 60% from middle of last year up to now. Now, yes, answer it me as any more by way of quantities. No, you have more reserves. It me abuama cities not appreciated, dollars no appreciated and depreciated up until now. And so these are some of the dynamics.
Okay, interesting dynamics there. Now, Iran, Israel are the from where you sit. It is saying already crude prices are costro. Fortunately, we're told by COMOC, a chamber of oil marketing companies, is in the next pricing window, there for prices be costro. Obviously, they say more old stock. Some already have letters of credit. Oma raise it at a certain rate. And CD no sooner dollar no said the no fairly stable until there is no reason to increase fuel prices. But the president in so task the finance minister and the BOG governor together with the energy minister to monitor the cost between Israel and Iran. How long are you able to me hold the petroleum prices at this level, looking at the ashas between these two countries and what immediate effect impact be and say we may have to wait a little longer and send it me and so.
Oh, impact after that. Now Israeli reciprocal attacks. There were two main threats. Number one, they say Iran has supply about 3.3 million barrels of oil per day.
3.3 million barrels.
3%. Yes, 3.3 million barrels of oil
a day.
In a day.
Wow.
A day. Iran contributes about 3% of total world oil base oil supply. Or don't put 3%. Iran is a major player or influence world oil because I won't want 3%. Ghana share Israel produces about 600 barrels per day. I don't know. It constitutes just
600 or 600,000.
600,000 barrels per day.
Okay.
It constitutes just about 0.0%. It's 0.01%, which means that I am negligible. Is that the on system?
Okay.
Or need the power to influence things. But Iran, the supply well about over 3%, which means that Iran supply any free more. Which may influence the price. And I hope that mentete was so. So what is Hormuz there?
I just say.
Strait of Hormuz. What is Strait of Hormuz? Another Strait of Hormuz.
That yeah.
A insure passage there. Far Iran, now far the Emirates.
Okay.
Now Iran, over the northern part of it.
Okay.
And the Emirates, over the southern part. And one about 20% of world oil, no. Yes, people, transport is ever.
Okay.
It is a Yamia so much mumuna, obey your magic on has a pipe now. Why can I? These are the possible threats that Iran poses to oil supply of the world.
And
then the threat to.
I'm just thinking, say, we heard the way Israel strike Iran, targeting the nuclear installations. My worry is, Sebia, Omonkoto missile be na nkwa attack and nkwa affect an oil drilling facility producing oil, and that means total halt of production. And okay, you can imagine about to say, hey, and the bomb you could either 2 or 3 of more oil production wells are some papa.
Are serious? But you see, they are quite calculated because Israel is doing that with the support of US.
Yeah.
And I'm not too sure say US will forgive Israel. Say, oh yeah, the one more economy, the US economy, I affected that, and they know that oil can thwart the economic prospect in America. There, see, obviously, one more fire, they will be very tactical and careful about it. I mean, they will be mindful of civilians, and they will be mindful of economic activities, especially when it has overarching impact on the world.
Yeah,
and I'm sure they will be very careful. But their work, so I will not rule it out because technology, technology,
it can fail.
Which me have to bomb now. So it is there. We just have to pray, Sabia, and hit some of these major production plants. Otherwise, we will see what we don't want to see. And as we speak now, Brent price increased by over 7%, and world oil price based on anchored on the Brent price. I can say right from the beginning, almost starting to shoot up by about 7%. Now, in my view, I may be wrong. I am only a student of energy economics. I'm not an expert, but I think that we are able to behave the way we are behaving because of the exchange rate.
Okay.
Because in our case, exchange rate played major role in our petroleum prices because we import.
Manchester, say Antimia managing any many the impact of war on petroleum prices.
World price in air cost na exchange rate mesa epeje mu a honestly speaking sika kai be spending on fuel no e be hard e be be say ati e said na aban de twom de kan Russia Ukraine war na hwe
Iran Israeli war. And that sounds like so the president is really monitoring this trend seriously and closely. Because of the decision to postpone the implementation of one CD Dumso levy, it is obviously because of a possible hike in petroleum prices. And untinama oma postponing so that it won't be a double jeopardy for the Ghanaians.
Yeah, that is the main issue. And then of course, the inflation consideration and investor confidence. You see, the thing is, but let me say that about we so to some extent not say over the interest of the country at heart, and that's all you can Ghana for because is say go through because hold on, let's see what happens. I mean, we've been in this country for some time now. In as much as the levy itself, I do not agree to the margins. I mean, we won't say 1 CD per letter as no. But the YN also tells us he meant well because woman hold on, it means that he really has the interest of Ghanaians at heart, and I think that is a good sign. But I think that it is because, like you are saying, you take time now or the one already able to price now for soccer and there were inflationary effect. It is to quite of course you time trigger na the global price na cost loka ho na nyame amwa na say same rate no so enkogina I don't think the Ghanaians will forgive him. They will complain because go for to abasa member assistant enyemre cost of living emra from until I think they why no. It's a hard decision to take, but it is in the interest of Ghana and I think he's done well.
From where you sit, President said Finance Minister, Energy Minister, omo observe war no. Na omo model several scenarios na yɛhwɛ kwan ebetimi mitigate any adverse impact on Ghana for so. What should they be observing? And they no looking out for?
Obviously, they would have to monitor the global market because here a rise of petrol oil on the global market rising. Now, they should relook at the levy itself.
Levy, no?
Yes, energy levy, no. They should look at it. Because even in BB say every time you delay for 1 month, technically we lose about 330 million Ghana cedis. But then the question is, how do we handle the energy sector areas? Because even in our quest to go revisit the international credit market, the suggestions were that the economy is here interest rate of because of credibility. Now, in the energy sector areas also credibility at all. We are still not being graded well because by the rating agencies because of this energy sector areas. And to me, energy sector areas need to have and can be credibility enough for more.
Okay.
Because I cannot so. But now, you mean to you can't see you did it, you know, so you mean because you through that. And to me, when they said they should have a look at this energy levy well. Is it possible, say, you're being more progressive? Is it possible, say, one city, no, you may be and I say, you reduce it further because let me be honest with you. I have consulted for firms in the sector, in this energy sector, and I have made some businesses there. I mean,
okay.
And I think that, say, over there, no, look at 10 pesos, you know,
yeah.
Yes, we multiply by several letters, a huge sum. And you know, even when you compare this levy to e-levy, and e-levy depend on we know ever more revenues. It tells you that there's money there, but can we reduce it if it's possible? So even if is right, is it possible to reduce it? And I say, you free what next? Because already no, you taxes be a free system. Say, what we new sense that. Yeah, assure IMF for one class we are looking at other ways that you better augment your revenue, especially when they want us to achieve fiscal consolidation. Now, credibility before IMF is at stake because this 1 year by the the staff level agreement had been agreed upon months ago. But going forward, no, our credibility before them, a bit unpredictable
because of the decisions they postpone implementation, Anna.
Exactly, because they are looking up to us. The energy sector, they best strengthen. No,
yeah, you can feel
realistic tariff. And that's the baby who be. And I say, the levy, sorry, the energy levy back. Because I empty before time. No, one more can go increase tariff. I'm sure you remember.
Yeah.
And I and away so. I say a cabinet legacy debt not the account. Into I was some day energy levy back. Energy levy is why Fufi and water, your chance. Into the IMF are also watching us closely. Then go forward by almost patches saying. But you see, so far the government has proven so credible. Until obviously they are looking up to the government to exercise discretion and do the right thing.
Okay.
But going forward, you better withdraw energy levy completely. We should look at ways that perhaps you free on you business KBD. Otherwise, trust me, I buy the flagship programs. Tika obi nyadi aye. And next year, we are a standard credit facility by mayor. What we see, we will not like it.
Dr. Evans Nunu, medase enewi ABM.
Mesma masipane akwenya.
EpaHoaDaben ti sinupi na nokre eye baako pe.
adwuma no so adwuma ne da hɔ ma aban so wɔbɛyɛ deɛ. Joining in our discussion in studio and every Haruna Amaleba, or a member of the NDC communications team, clad in suit and tie. Also in our discussion and every Fifi Deka, Onoswa always looking smart casual. Member of the MPP communication team. Enche Mobetenenka. Anka Orabi yes was studio ha. Operation recover or loot. Where the anka you loot? When her operation him will be phone. In our discussion and then you rain so the General Secretary Emma Ghana Freedom Party. Opening Georgia for and Swajinedra. Penny for me mamwajo. Me mamwaha kahon. Emma Mwakwaba.
Yeah, baby.
Nyamia do me hoye. Ahodiaba. Na wonso
last week, said I'm supposed to have been here.
Yeah. Then about
you see, Peduana is
one kasa. We are workaholic.
Benedict. Ghana.
Amaliba on whom you already want to so. Already you want to so.
Now you so pay MPP never need the Bonipa Ukuma if you deca.
I said, man, okay.
Me on them need some money Ukuma.
Only no din some money. We know we doing some money and
Meneno.
Sir, yeah, make come. To say some money sense.
Caswan point, your girlfriend to go Caswa. Weekend be a hoda your calling cantier. Daminim cantier Sabacolo Bodu Balu yesterday. I'm very correct. You press a quarter.
I tell you, there are who we Canadian Biana say, Fifi de Cardo, sir. I don't know how old child I'm feeling. Before I want and I carry him the phone. Oh, no, make me do a form this year. Fee Boko, dear. Code no system anymore. I suffered it last week.
Sorry about that.
It wasn't easy at all. But I mean, code the Achua when you're humble trainer. We treating in kakran. And only a samono, bra. And only a samono. I say, to tournament them I do kakrentino. What is in the Sukakra? Fan also hydrogen power.
West.
Yeah, hydrogen power. Especially said dust kakra was so come with the and then a semono as a cry. Miss Avo? Na Boko de.
Quite say Israel Iran war.
Hey, any wedding?
Sir, wedding. And so on Paibuana, Bompire say.
Debbie was so shall say. I told him to say, what your will put your son on your cradle, or no so betting your betty pa.
They don't know why he did it, but he hasn't even started.
Oh, Cizie.
Just say, well, I don't know how.
Okay.
I say. But this someone
and I say, our close eye on it. Movie, sir. Okay, so more a omodomu no. But they be fair mo. Drones need be fair mo. You know, Iran and Russia drones no more the air, Ukraine for the no more the air no. And they are using those drones on Israel now. Omodome system no the way here Jumano. I'm sure, sir, knowing the way here humanity na Iran for no, and so a fire the way of fire no. Unze a picket signal no when it's fired. Now a direct into shano we na say no we. Inti Iran for no so a tuni multiples. Inti one ya ba could be the befem you no be befem. Or launch be 200 now what the bay 152 who say 150 crab be 50 BD. About hitting some civilian places.
Economists technology there.
It's me feeling so. Yeah, Bakube film. Because some places in Tel Aviv have been hit. Yeah,
Israel is such a powerful nation.
On their own, they are not that powerful. With their allies, they are powerful.
When Israel started fighting wars, there was no America. In the Bible,
Yes.
But the biblical Israel,
and yet the biblical Israel,
I doubt it.
Still at the same location. And yet the same location. You can still find yourself in the same location, and you can carry the same name. But it's not you.
No, you don't. No,
it is.
Offer trace different. Oh, yeah, nananom.
Yeah.
Omuku yomu endi nkuku da. Enti yeah ba no. Yen so no. Enti no some motivation is there.
Countries Libya, they resisted them. Today they are no more.
I know that's all.
Yes.
Since opening assassin so crave you massive in Ash.
But you see, the current Israel now, it is said to be a creation of the West. Yes, I mean, there are schools of thought almost to say they were created by the West and that they are not the indigenous Israelis, as it were. So, I doubt it.
What I say, you create, what the mammy for win film. Barcelona.
Yeah.
Messi fit team no more for 10 years. Obianche no matter Jesse. Obianche.
Me observe.
Since you know, Yami Lama, the next season, Umbra Beshe.
I didn't know Bian Beshe.
Because a Juma Messi Bay, you know.
Big shoes to fill.
Big shoe to fill. And so I know beauty say Messi. And so one say, Matu obidin. Yes. And the pano ebia me asantini, and I be ni bibi or better name if you know what to. Hey, 50 decade obey. Oh, no, say you. Sao we no cry, very yes, there's something in the name.
See, the name is Israel.
The name is Israel, no cry.
Regardless of how you see them.
Fantastic.
Interesting.
Regardless.
Amaliba, let me listen to you and your.
If you're on my Israel.
Yeah.
You're on coupon form free, Miss Dream Kosum. A domo called Bosch assassins were now Omoye Abraham.
I say Ansana Omobeko Mizrimu, no more assassins originally. And Omokonkwasum.
Yes. And that's also another school of thought that we can look at. But there wasn't a nation Israel at that time. No.
Israel wasn't there.
Israel wasn't
so
there.
Who was in Egypt?
Israel wasn't there.
No, so who was the slave in Egypt? If any Israel, if the nation Israel didn't exist, Omo conquer Israel, no me info.
They were Abraham as
So when was Israel created? When did God start
moving? Israel was created, or even what do you call it a creation? It was a nation that God called. Right, and we all know the story. This is not a theological class. We will not bore ourselves much. And I feel they can run quite sorry. The point is, I'm sorry, the opinion. And the nation Israel, no shame, Ryan, Kupon, to two, and then Newman almost saw Monya. That nation came to an end many years ago.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That the original nation Israel has come to an end.
The nation Israel. Yeah, Omoye Abraham was for Yankopon, you free Misrim. And radical the moment say. So we could do Bosch as or the mom no so. Momon war a mamma for Nibi. That law was breached. And indeed, when Yankopon frey, that seed is a contaminated seed. Do you get it? Enti on my Israel Yankopon yi womono, Abraham as for no. One person on be war a mamma for no. You are for motiway. It be Arab for, it be America for, it be a Britain and German moja frawi. We know why Israel can was Charlie, you want some pack? I always my time on that. But yeah, as someone economist in Canada, I want to lay that fear to rest.
Okay.
Bibi,
Amaliba.
On say even Sabio Abushemu Crano, Sika Samin Jafako.
No credit.
Sabio, we had more happier from her. Bosume soa oje kakra. Ibi a wife so a different institution. And I also say maybe also any business cry. You can anticipate say weekly no the profit margin be 500 cedis.
Yeah.
All things being equal weekly. And you man ko ye cry no 500 cedis the wife be the free market about the profit. And she said maybe the 1,000 number can ho I be say 1,500. That's the family income. Me can say monthly. Now that 1,500, and now Obe portion all the family expenditure out of it. At the same time, now the savings are there at to baby. Now, what do you crab to us? I want you to be wakofa. It is instructive to also know say, Ebia Bibi, out of 1,500, 70 CDC What do you can tell one chance they have enough if they can go away the weekend?
Turn the entertainment allowance.
Oh, they do BBR. You said entertainment allowance remain there. Means suspending a crap. What I'm saying therefore is that I buy any sika or baby or digital mine or done or mine and sika. Okay. And setting your priorities right will always help you to put things in the right perspective. Hypocrisy, say, as a chimney boba, all of a sudden, you'll be able to absorb the shocks. Now, how no encode my phone supi. Now, young radio, come and pin a for the uncle $258 million. Monche Monka and Fantoreja. Nanko Seko use a sikanimpo at their sovereigness for a how we are comical striker. Comical strike.
Oh, certain man who see cathedral and necessary semi.
But that issue has persisted over the last 8 years. It has persisted. Okay, condition of service. Saying here last month or 2 near 4.
Your point is that there were pressing issues and Kibiti Medicine can.
Fantastic.
Okay.
In addition to that, Attorney General a press conference. And the Tuesday on. No, and the Monday. That was last week, right?
Yeah.
Good. Last week Friday. And look at the issues he brought out. And the 500 million Ghana cedis, over 500 million Ghana cedis, according to Fobotum.
Why is he not in court?
Do you get it? So, if we are able to manage natural resources well, now you can create examples to be among Kofubi and nature. Now, you see,
but beyond managing resources and cutting waste, the real challenge of forex rates as against inflation and global economic trends. The economist says near course between Israel and Iran. Say yentimia manage seed in the way I no na sustain no. Na aban fi asese oba betuatu an commitment. Na Iran ne ye kan say Israel ntokoi heighten na crude prices cost ra. Baby e begina na nya sempa kra.
That is a fear mongering.
Are you sure? Is he not rather painting to you the reality of what could happen?
Yes, I am not unmindful that say Israel, I'm going to say Iran is a significant oil producing country. And as it is, on my India economy thrives on oil or on the crude. For example, even Ghana, the energy are deriving in and we derive from Tema. And Tema, also you need crude to power them. Do you get it? And until now we are buying.
In fact, we can actually power with gas, but
yes,
maybe
and a crude was ultimate drink on kind under NDC time. From 2008, April 2016, yet me see a trouble got 1 billion gas processing plant. And before Bettina Kunya, someone they send a count. You get it? Now, President Mahama Mills is see a trouble. No, so bad no see back to see. Topic we discuss.
Me busane say
me na me wa bem mu nti ya butre.
We na wa bem ba me question is say near economist na kano, is that not the possible reality?
It is the possible reality, but I am saying that it's a fear mongering.
Really?
Yes, because as a government, who set your priorities right, you'll be able to forgo certain things that can enable you to provide for maybe a shocks. Remember,
instead of saying say fear mongering, why won't you say abayate na abayin be ye way to forestall sad happening? But because fear mongering now, it's as if said the war cannot happen. But Obonko
he was even talking about the forex.
He did. He talked about it.
Oh, your forex now. What brought the forex down? Because we've been able to cut the gold smuggling, okay, and centralize the gold trade in order for the process to come through a specific channel of inflows into the government coffers. There is sufficient dollars in the system. That has brought down the cost, and the rate of the dollar, whilst at the same time influencing the fuel price in the market. Do you get it? And besides that, there will be sufficient inflows through our gold export. That alone, undoubtedly, will give us sufficient resources to cushion any shocks as a result of this Russia or the Iran.
And don't worry, you'll be used to it.
And nobody.
We've been used to Russia, Ukraine. Don't worry.
No, we will not. No. See,
but the president himself has underscored.
Russia, Ukraine.
The president has underscored the possible impact of that.
Fine. I didn't dollar in ever form. Meanwhile, we took a country at a time where you know, for the year excuse no. We came and meet the same problem. And if it is added more, despite that, and the fuel price had dropped, right?
I mean, like the question I ask is, how long can this government maintain fuel prices at that level, knowing what Iran and
not
Israel
government
are doing?
maintaining the fuel price at that level, because the fuel price that I'm told is determined by the window. Do you get it?
Every 2 weeks.
Yeah, every 2 weeks. But whether or not no depends on the level, the quantum of dollar in the system to meet the BDCs,
Any demands.
No demand. That's all.
Okay. And now you are even hoping to get 370 million.
Do you get it? So if there is sufficient dollars in the system and demand, so now economists demand and supply pool, that forces there is sufficient forest to meet demand.
Problem.
There will not be any scarcity.
Okay.
And there's no scarcity here. What shows there? Then the chance price in bed, able shoot it up. Do you get it? Even though Ghana, Yankasa, a oil producing country, and companies are almost free. Then people did not even develop our oil industry when they took power for the last 8 years. They were no Cosmos and how do you call it? ExxonMobil, they all left. It is because of your bad policies. Come develop your petrochemical industry in a year. Because we wouldn't have any qualms at all.
Okay.
So Iran, Israel, for 10 years, we don't have a problem with that. Sometimes to 2 years, ne draw which bremoa. Wow, bra bo aboa.
That's it. Fifi, let me hear you out on this matter.
We wakasa we any preliminary comments keke.
On the last topic,
question man. Overrule him.
Bibi. Oh, say you tikrum hana. You go for catch and say.
Yeah.
Russia and Ukraine, baby, you couldn't talk on the crown.
And may
Asumjo. And then bomb back up to you. President said you was through an unti crown tax or no alcohol under certificate of emergency. No, watching a sign. That should show you the hypocritical nature of the NDC. And then one casa, you tax Amokoyan and I do this. You couldn't speaker. If you fear how much in buy some pass it taxi. What pass here? Time as Susan Munyusua. Oh, what that? Time as Susan Munyusua, Abde Mose, Iran and Israel to quantity hold you on. You catch them say, the way the world is now, no. A problem anywhere can be a problem everywhere. And until no be no be done to Quabina only her crass. Still, a bit me and say no Montiasi. And they won't. And now Malibati here can say, and your government a 2 petrol. And so that not her say Kufadu Timothy for no ton petrol and then they'll say on your buying. You catch a Ghana for saying Crawford, you know more snatch. They operate the devil's ministry or the no crack a cranny trophy bree, not their say assembly. Or say,
my question is it not the case the two scenarios in very different kakra? You have Ukraine and Russia. Ukraine is not a heavy oil producing country. You're depending on so much for oil.
Yes, but other countries do.
For oil?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Yes. But may have the direct impact on Ghana. But you have Iran. Or produce contra about 3% of the global.
It's the 3rd largest oil producer in the world.
So what the Iran and the Ukraine Ubeka say the dynamics are the same in terms of impact between your Ghana.
You want me to say Chobas wa hase who could do my friend Mr. Biggs.
Okay. Be a restaurant.
But Mr. Biggs are near Juma. What the pressure about the 2 ways? What's he saying?
That's true.
Any time Mr. Biggs is not working, there'll be pressure on this
the
one. The few of you that goes to Mr. Biggs, when Mr. Biggs is not working, you have to come here, and there'll be pressure here. And when there's pressure here, the price will go up.
Okay.
So, and who here said Ghana, any omuye business, and any omuye business. Once their production comes out of the line, Omom ko nyina be redivert yakọ baby a wo kọ na ukonya no. Tell the okwa
either say price now control.
That's right. Either say unya and akọ abekọ na e wo so. Eno ni asem no. Na Maliban sense mo keke kan de. Me ka se be de akiri a ade be chi yen. Ayi kameka say accountant general. Attorney general no de why na adwin so no nsem nyina no obeka no news mu ayi press conference. Obi anu akoda. Because o static kan edubu ahini ni nsan nyama ekosu nyina okoti kodai. My boy na kasa de ne court ansa na onyane sande na court. Nsem ya bei lawyer bia ma ya te ase say national service for no omuba no be national service a. Usa buy pay ne contem.
There is always arrears.
There's always arrears. Aya no mo pay nyama toto. Obu o start up. Mind you, say most of them, and now all of them, every university, any time an asset form, it's maybe. They say they are university pay. In the tertiary for no every, no bu or kofia or peso bekono, then the TV be boni them, and then the fridge be, and then TV and fridge, and now whatever. In tertiary need ye pay no money directors na so. Me say, me towe. Then directors need your allowance no. I could secure facility not the attorney na ba omo it allowance ni ba no mutua bank no it ese ka obisa no say na ADB bank no say be enyansafo ni ho obi betimi do obi allowance abeji enye dia no abeji loan no wedi omo auditors omo board. How is that possible? But what we say when we are not time bia no enya mamu no mo pe o when we the propaganda no be otimi court ma judge you appear or say there be any sana court ni kind court ni say no asesa no. They always want to please their followers. Yes sir ka dey we nke hu hia say attorney general crowba na obeka otia say because how say a director of a company at the allowances are money ho etiri collateral kwaji loan now utimi nyi hu say na loan no kwaji at the bank no what do you they do into the man no. Wow, but always a copy say omo dey high purchase e to turn your mama go for into allowance ne ba no matua na akọ na lawyer na obe interview no me ba na meeting no lawyer na say no I mean I agree with Max I can say very soon no judge bi kwa e be say need back bonechi no ye NDC no ye MPP because lawyer ne say mo kind no meeting na say o say Obiama judgment say first and foremost, I see who go Supreme Court it's about the law and something and the exigencies of the time.
Yes.
I remember very well.
Okay.
Exigencies of the time. Now, government, and I say, on my Ghana echo elections, a man for person with a birth certificate, echo year or more voters ID card. Electoral Commission says that there be for birth certificate to the Ghana card. Never saw Ghana card and call voters ID card. Because so the birth certificate to the Ghana card or hono over Kosua affidavit Ninyama. It is a who say you fake car, you're going to be fast. But what the back direct sana, get the end to be quiet, Sanyamano, ebe my Juma Bibri, into quiet. You saying the exigencies of the time, no, any demand judgment. Not judge a court nase, no, I can say because of the exigencies of the time, Nintendo, crowd birth certificate is not enough. I want to say this for no and true. Omo can say it doesn't mean you are not a Ghanaian. No, I say it's not enough
proof
of
nationality.
I say we can hey. Ukra birth certificate create so Ghanaian and the dog man no can no mo can. And you a lawyer who even set this one about we can you say na vet no mo ye no ade oba akoka ho no enu kire say okọ bench so because okotena bench so or the law the letter and the whatever the spirit and the exigencies of the time and no the
or say lower courts no the mrano
yes
but do Supreme Court anya mrano kwana o where the whole climate
that's right
and everything answer
iko danado di a case ni court no election petition no Madam Fu be ni lawyer, ni papa a lawyer penny. And they ye business. They had just started just like a week. No, so I said,
okay.
There's no way they will say, look, NDC has done something, so they should come home and let
MPP take over.
Nanado become president. And then I said, I said, do you know the kind of chaos that will happen? I said, look, I have colleagues on the bench. And when they sit down, they look at all the implication of
That's
their
what
judgment.
news.
Also, they look at the implication of their judgment.
Yeah.
They can't benchmark and say, no, as somehow can you correct.
But
then we have wait now. And yet, and so too much, say, because Papa, me say, no more start your case now 1 week, pay. And you need this and come. I said, no way. I said, no. They'll tell you, they'll just say something for him to be happy. Say, look, and somebody buying you now, pepe. But you're hearing some now, and you're heavy enough, say, you better any election. That's Supreme Court for you. Who lawyer you're supposed to know? Who say, I don't know, Nipani appointed such judges, you should know, say, political appointment. Meanwhile, nobody be appointed. They'll say,
Ejumani
doors, you appointed 30. Oh. Anyway. Oh yeah, the questions now be standing there. I was so impressed, but
That's it. Mr. George Afo, let me hear you out on. I think say the last topic in the IMF 370 million coming, possible impact of the Iran-Russia war. Iran-Israeli war. Or mining position to avert any negative impact.
That's You see, one thing I say, and I say, Memma and you be say, Mitigana, Obiti Russia, Obiti Holland, and it's a same Hollander, affecting Ghanaians. It's never true. It's never true. Bibi, a bay dim passe. Show yeah. Dakro Beba, Bibi, Max, and Asifa. Munina, Bibi Beba, I say, oh, and possible that. Ebia, Rebecca so Max, stay. Na Bibi ni Sifa day, because there is a show. Anka Intisa, Anka President, and country energy minister, any finance minister say, Charlie, monitor Adena, Kosono. Because Anopebia security reports no yet come president.
National security briefing.
Briefing had come president. And to be hot no, Niama hot in Niama own no. Many yentis hasem nibi. So for the president to come out say, finance minister, energy minister, mo monitor situation no. Not just say on them said that chibiano, bibi betumi ayeden. Esi. Nanso we aye ken nyina no, amaleba kan bibi oba be wie no, no kware. Yankasa ya brabo aye bono. Se ye boni ye a se bibisi wo baabi a en hayen bebre. Na esan se yankasa ya brabo na aye bono. Ye boni ye nte no. Se bibisi a ni o se ade ye si de e. Ebe affect ye. Yeti se Burkina Faso omofo mu bibi free Ghana. And se ne Burkina Faso fo be sorry se Ghana fo min kasa me samba o ye ko a. Ebe ha omo. Di ntine ebe ha omo.
Yenso be higher pa.
Yenso be higher pa. But waka so na say Burkina de motimo man na say Ghana fo ye bibia. Hwe ba bia yeti wo asalam down. Na so say boku asem no. Won say high. Because we share kilometers from asalam down to boku a. Anga waka say oh di ntina. Ntini aba no. Impa na say e bo say Israel for no.
Ye nema no say tutu ni. Impa de.
Yes. Onyankopo be ka omakoma
no majai
so omujai be boa yen na fresu ya tutu ye diama eyie won say time $1 no e ba fom no mbe kan bi say ese ye discipline say sia ne ekoso wo Israel ni Iran no sa discipline asem no say sia ye sika ntutu ehuhia say sia sika ntutu ye no ese ye hwe de we a ese betutu na say Israel say ye njai ye be ye okwawo asase aban ye ntija ya na yen so no essence ya boy en bre yi ne nte no se bibi koso kra na en affect yen too much do se be affect yen but en se ba na fe ye hu ba bia ye de be fa enti ni ha be die ese e ma ye ni da ho ni ye tutu ye ni ama yie anye sa na se be ye se ni ye se ye ni ama na o e bia ba another time no
Ukraine
Russia by ye kan say Iran Israel and also eba enti de bia na say ye tena say na sa ne ama no beto yen oh me papa say o de me be ko shopping mall na so papa onya aska on fa nko shopping mall a ontu nko akira enkoto bibi I say we the shopping mall nko a me wa wo fa asalam dan echi a
obenye biato
oh enti say tutu ye ne ama yie say ye sikasem kwan aban fa so expendi se sia won a wokokoji fuel coupon free no ni ade nyina sa ne mo nyina ese ye hwe because ye kan o ye ho asem wa na ye den ye kan we rolling style once na rolling na ni mami titema ena ojafo ba tem okwa akosra ni mami nti all ba no once tema moto we no aha ne ya no say Sarinki, by this time government official
Bena onam
tema moto no ka kire ni mundi echiri constituency chairman so and the same in discipline
Ojinidi onya free fuel
so onya free fuel and no see anya discipline this time Israel Iran will be affect yen na so see etumi boy embre yie ye hihye nsika asem yie no madam for say no rough spending bia asem ebeba na so san say ya hihye ye kiri yie nti no ye betumi agina sure me use first ask asem no enka one
there we here
370 no
oh yes
good baby
staff level agreement na eba be releases 370 away
lumba osisike bia eden
Ifinim. Iniskafi. Because you be the ball as wafa.
Okita 100 cedis. Uma me 5 cedis a. Osika na wabeka 95.
Yeah.
And you say osika na nya 100 bium. And to kwa na hu bibi, ne so ade no eye 97.
Uniska beto. Osika nso.
Osika no nso si me ma George 5 o. After you come back to George. Oh George. 5 na me ma no. Ma me 2 cedis na me fa ye den. And so enkoto ade no. Enti etire me ma won se wo sama beji 2 cedis e wo me sika no me so me pie ya na ade na me pe no ade na ye 4 cedis me so no wa beji 2 cedis enti sika bia no eba eboa ye yi sika bia so fi mu a e affect se si ayeka se e bia china ye sika kitwa bia nso se si judgment debt Ghana for nkoto ya $370 million a hwe effecta ebenya wo economy nso because sika ye pe bio ne si Ghana akodi dwa bi wandi ni yie enti nkrofo di akokot na ye gi saska na free ensem e beka say na sasika e kura wo ho anka betumi di aye we betumi di aye we yo enti sa 370 na e ba no e yade e beboa economy no na nanado agenda 111 sika ye pede awie no sika e kura to mi wie sa agenda 111 no enti ye nhwe sector se diska no korura ebetumi aiden aboa
but what the economist now say what he sees in says 370 million e dey kokko kan reserves ho because a time will come where ebedifo kokko fa ne ma ba obi hia dollars so when you more reserves now omu fi ase so mu demand dollars na ebesa ama cedi na tia fa so biem nti ono de ohunu no say omo de be kokko kan reserves no so that when there is high demand for dollars etime nya bi di ama na ankwankoma forex no asa anti amfa so
baby ni o kan mini ya dream of me ba mini ni ya dream of me
okay
baby yeti nyina ye padi papa ma ye ma o
ampa
na so ntumi kan che oba se kwa me si abrunsan ma o anti kwa me free school ba me ma na aduane na oba si abrunsan na wie na kwa me ni we anti sika ni de enyamba ye kra no ye wo baby ye de be hye
okay
and then we next is for ya or magic
pressure daban
no so and the sky way ba so let's is mokra no okay mo de asam no
contractors be bring so here ska
it's a contractor be bring amasa mankwen afinisi bujumbura kwen afinisi and it's and the sky way ba let's yo ye hu say si amasa mankwen kra na VIP buses na mo kra mo type papai and the contractor say mo beji bibi kakra they go back to site
okwa so kra wa energy sector e kada ho a
energy sector
370 kra betima te kano so pa
anka 1 CDC ya wodi be kra wa twa san yo and the sika yi ba
obohu
ma enka say na ye pay reserve no bebre ye o de ma reserve no nya bebre o be kwa ba na we ti asai and 370 ni de be boa pa say am efka de bi ka won kra na
ye beje very well George Afumeda say me ko commercial break me ko ba the minority say sa 1 cedi na bind e ba no won scrap kra wenye me postpone yi free ho kra ma ne mbabiem. The minority is also accusing Abine say they are flip-flopping over policy. Now, the fact is that Oma postponing sa 1 cedi implementation clearly shows that Abine and Union one question, one planning year, na out of the blue and or the policy ne buy because policy buy bosumi mpo mae watwe e dey assign. I'll go for a break. Me koba ebeti asisansem mu na mahase with Haruna Amaleba. We're back after these.
Your property holds the power to transform your future. Welcome to Eclipse Collateral Management, the game changer in turning property documents into profits. We are not just another service. We are your partner in unlocking sustainable income and fueling business growth. With prime brokerage, collateral brokerage, credit brokerage, and land documents perfection, we are redefining what is possible for property owners and business owners alike. At Eclipse, we have built a primary depository platform, a secure, innovative space where property owners like you can lodge your documents and earn risk-free, sustainable income. For businesses struggling to secure funding, we provide collateral solutions you need to thrive and grow. Every move we make is backed by a rigorous credit appraisal process, so you know you are in safe hands. Find us at Adenta Barrier near Medi Moses Hospital, beside the West African Senior High School wall. Call 054-383-2466 today. At Eclipse Collateral Management, for property owners, we say, think safety and decent income. And for business owners, we say, think funding before projects.
Tovila Water Solutions. Tovila Water Solutions. If in a water treatment you define it, Tovila Water Solutions. Technical support for your water systems, Tovila Water Solutions. Water research training Tovila Water Solutions. Water dispensers, drinking water supply, Tovila Water Solutions. We provide safe water for your homes, companies, industries, communities, government and non-governmental organizations.
When it comes to customer satisfaction and professionalism in water solutions, Tovila Water Solutions is the #1 in Ghana. You can contact us on 055-2490-864. We are located at Titegu, Accra, Ghana.
EpaHoaDaben ti sinupi na nokre eye baako pe.
Na Dua Herbal Clinic. Sa wasa yare easily sa.
Dua Herbal Clinic. Na aven wate wo monka. Honema ni yare, sunsumu yare. Yare kwankro. Ya wo sa no ho no. Yesi bini.
Mekuma yare na ye kwankro. Ana bi mu kra de ahye beyie. Oduru ho a doctor ne de ahaban gu ni komu a munum hwara hwem ya wenya na yare sa.
Chese instant healing.
Mesewo.
Ayare sa wo ba bi o.
Dua Herbal Clinic.
Wo yare no. Doctor Ohinebo Ofori e de fasoro na ansa wo de befa fom. Chese ekwan biaso yare ntimi nwane enfiri nanim.
Dua Herbal Clinic.
E bayal samuan wa ben seja wa ben wo hye. Kuma se wa brepo broni krom. Fra ho 0248 427 998. Ena kasoa breku 0246 35 47 47.
Akrobato me kanfo Dua Herbal Center. Wa ohia bi abra. Ekoyie.
EpaHoaDaben ti sinupi na nokre eye baako pe.
Welcome back. EpaHoaDaben Jumedie and you check with the time. 28 minutes gone past 5. Meeting and Bismark Brown in the studio. Haruna Amaleba, member of the NDC communications team. Fifi Deka, member of the NPP's communication team, as well as opening Georgia for Onoye General Secretary Emma Ghana Freedom Party. My member Haruna Amaleba ho, but just before then, minim say program be a say a wedding, say product launch, and I say production be now say be a music video be now person ucha, and you want to document something either audio or video. Pacho E-Productions na make count for Eddie Amao. E-Productions a first class production company. I transforming ideas na yede aba into reality. And we tell visual stories, we leverage on technology and creativity. They deliver masterclass pieces, creating memories for life. Na senior E-Productions, no etieno program bia wo ya opese o cover bia ana opese wo de to abefo kwan so pen video pen audio say product be na jingle be na person or you record the advert, we try advert, Pacho talk to us. Everything audiovisual, we have you covered. Fre e-productions and now on 0242 755 323 and now 0302 254 858. To be to send an email to eproductions@gmaworld.com. Sorry, I'm here. Production or money kasa be ni nyina e am companies are mo pesa mo live stream na mo need the technology to do. We're here and we have you covered. E-productions, we capture the moment. Amaleba minority say postponement in the won't forget you. I didn't say was a muyi free or cry. One CD na nka mo de beji dum so levi no munyi free o. Omo se mo anwene ho yi, mo anwene ho anko akire. Enti na mode baye ya masan eyidi afriwe but matisa monkrofo ni bi so kase which is John Mahama a listening president we hear the sentiments of the people and all of that, but if near mampani kan about Iran and Israel war no anything to go by, the question now is did we really plan ahead and did we see this coming and say they don't want to see the neighbor now?
Bibi
Minya,
if we start break up for a coping can the next 10 minutes.
The next 2 minutes, minimum.
The bay na ye chi motiema President Mahama so on the come of House.
In see,
I mean,
minority for no, they're asking for too much, and
I'll come to them. But okay. See, Fifi Deka on in the court to my judgment or Chichimo. I was so shocked listening to him.
Which one?
Bibi.
What did I say?
If we are so wrong, birth certificate means what?
Birth certificate.
What again? Huh?
What are they saying?
Free yena nanon yante chima penso. Ya de birth certificate by no. Da ben ya be cancel birth certificate na chi bi fufuro saka ho bi. All that we need to know or we have been known to. Uko wakola wa hospital ye ma o fill form. We are na ya portion amount. Fakofie. Abanso keep copy. E your birth certificate na me boa. State room am medium papa din be mu free.
And your weighing card. And no be your birth certificate.
Me can birth certificate you weighing.
Say in your hospital na birth certificate.
And ne komut me no hospital. Eno mo ye.
Na kwada on tu ni din bi na de ma no.
Omo ye. Ye de din na idea wo no be ye. In any case, Bibi,
national ID now.
Birth certificate means birth certificate. Until a Akufo-Addo pencil ne be hu say, hey, sena ntesa. Later on, so call page 32 of the penny fee book. Omo can pay face say it was a political decision.
Which book is of the
penny fee Japadi book?
Which book is that?
Japadi book na buy and one
concocted book.
Akufo-Addo family book na buy.
Family book. Omo family head. Watching he omo nim the picture. Omo go for 2 for picture better.
2 for ben.
Omo go picture that that's
no book wari bia. You book wari bia. Ebia wani ya. No document no am be chiro. Ombe kind that they intentionally did that to suppress people from registering and voting to get them out. And them on there. And to only have something carrying it. Some said the reason for the judgment no came out. Bibi, later, Ghana Revenue Authority at the buyer on 13th June 2025, last week, a postponing tariff payment. Almost say, okay, last sentence now. Almost say a new effective date will be communicated in due course. Okay.
And it's in a minority for someone who
has. Okay. Even let admit or assume that admitting say a nyoma a cautioning na buying a share how the market will be. So the buyer enco for the corresponding hardship and Martin so inti my mention chen so kakra na menhwe ne ebeko. Abanye ne sawa bone be na aban na ye. Bibi.
Yeah.
Ye enti na mra wo ho anase mra enti na ye wo ho.
Oh my.
Of course. Nye enti na mra no ho. Ye ni panti na mra no ho. Nti ye ni panti na mra no ho dia. Na se ya shamra. O ana wo se chinchini nchia mra na nyedwuma.
O mra kwa mwa ya.
Yes, emwayo. Bibi. And yet, a binary sudie, let me say this right here and now. And yet, in this, a binary sudie da so or there which you bagana for so never. Osha omampini Mahama
no cry no cry na nkebe pamo because enye no tina to abama.
Bibi. Eto down. Usuba no ni ye bi etime kofa or how be ba na ehun hia.
Okay.
President Mahama promised to cut waste on cutting waste. He has done it.
How? Where?
Yes, mobile mo first time, more than 125 ministers. Only how many ministers on the man?
That's a budget, so say a budget.
But you obi phone me notifications be it goes on 90. Mo check
notification if you dey ka honeba or chat it.
Na go be edin.
On the honeba. We mboni this answer money to the intemo no man phone. The government have cut waste. At the same time, last week, President Mahama directive said DSTV subscriptions in the first half house should be stopped. And all government agencies, you see, he would trivialize it.
How big a deal is it?
How check, you see,
how much is it in
check the government institutions and factor their subscriptions. Collectively,
as if Jubilee House, not
it's
everywhere.
A huge amount.
Jubilee House, not everywhere, please.
In addition to that, every action of the government is aimed at making sure that your national resources are used judiciously. We have proven that. And we are not going to engage in any profligate expenditure like Independence Day, Mukodi spend over 120 million. We are not going to do that. And the last Independence Day celebration was clear example.
Amaliba, would you concede this?
Going forward,
one CD doom solid.
Going forward, Bibi,
one year
going
broad
forward,
stakeholder consultation.
Let me tell you something.
You didn't touch base with the people who will be affected by this levy. Let me tell you something. You do agree?
This one, that one CD was going to charge on the gains made as a result of the drop of the rate of the dollar.
Yeah.
You buy enough fuel price and look at where it is. Thanks to the CD appreciation against the dollar. Bibi, me no can say energy data that the sector where MPP are buying a broke can go ho.
EpaHoaDaben.
Before NDC left office, ye jamo Esla was supposed to last from 2006 to 2018, maximum 19. That had a sunset clause. That was a corner year, free war. Why? Because your ambition say Ebema government 4.7 billion Ghana cedis per year. Na sasikano a bit made to your energy sector debt in Iden. If you ebesa build a financial buffer for the energy sector. Yeah, nebe buama ECG, VRA, Netco, and then one more, right? Netco, ECG, Gridco. Okay. Almost person they can go to the capital market, to the stock market to borrow on the strength of their balance sheet. We leave the resources for you. Mobile ye mo de sika ne yeden. Mo de kosi awa eje bosia no bedi do kono won kran ha. Ewi echi no, mo broka almost 80 billion Ghana cedis e de ato. Second one nkotua. The energy sector ohwe year na gas or the same independent power producers come do more and no kwampuno amount to almost $3.1 billion. One in Kutu Sakano. And these are people here making noise. Are you aware that Ombetna Kunyaso, among your maintenance work can be anywhere across the country? West African gas pipeline or the same maintenance also moye. It was supposed to have been done somewhere in November last year. Almost started in Kenya of elections is pending. Inti ebeye campaign tiaom tisa maintenance no omonye. When we came to power, we did it. If you are following recently, we say ECG omoma timetable about areas on bedum Kenya to carry out the maintenance work because underground cables in Shotwa no musubai omodano mwedi. And many transformers across the country need a replacement.
But now who was doing
ECG? Doing CSA. Well, here we are.
Meanwhile, you say, oh my,
here we are. It was a lie. Let me tell you. When you say, Honorable Minister John Jinapo, take you over as a minister. Ocho Krata, the command, Gridco for Gridco. Say, Omomano.
Who 2 minutes?
Mate. Omomano, the low shedding, Omoye in 2024. Bibi, omo the timetable no man. And could you believe that at a given point in time, between 2000 and January to December 2024, omo ye load shedding up the peak, it was 720 megawatt of load shedding. Yes, this is the letter. And let me read it to you. Almost saying, we forward the attached analysis of load shedding that was carried out in 2024. The report shows the days in each month that load shedding management was carried out. The results of the analysis show that the maximum coincident load shedding for the year was 720 megawatt and was carried out in December. Okay? And the minimum was 59 megawatt. And in fact, this is the date, this is the month analysis.
Your experience na your friend Dumsi was actually load shedding.
It was load shedding.
And yeah, because of maintenance.
No. It was a load shedding. In fact, maintenance were part of it and load shedding too. What even brings about the load shedding is when you are unable to produce to meet demand.
But when you are also embarking on maintenance, you shed load.
But
aware.
And wasn't that? That wasn't the case.
You admit yes,
I agree with that. So also, your maintenance, you carry out, how do you call, you shut down the light. But come carry out that maintenance now. Can you maintenance be?
Maintenance, it's an everyday thing. It's an ongoing thing. Maintenance. Maintenance.
There are difference between when something happens unexpectedly. Now, than when you're supposed to do it and you refuse to do it. You get it?
The letter you read mentioned coincidental
load shedding,
which is not planned. It's not something you.
You see, the letter I read tells the coincidental load shedding, but what it means, therefore, is that look, or they're saying daily analysis now from January to December now. 1 year cannot be a coincidental or something coincident. 1 year cannot be. Before we left office in the year 2017. Now, the projected power demand per annum was 12%. Right? And looking at energy capacity, when they came, what did they do about it? They did nothing about it. And today, here we are. Bibi, to make the policies as they want. Metia for your market during the last debate on this matter. As someone can say, they can do all the politics about it. But the choice is, should we maintain or bring down the fuel to, let's say, even 5 cedis per liter? Or even per gallon. Near shut the power off, not gun and someone. Between the two, which one are we choosing? And the mess you created occasion this. That call for this.
Yeah, that's it.
And we must take this painful decision in order to save our minor and in the power sector and the economy from total collapse.
You have unfortunately withdrawn.
You have
unfortunately
we haven't withdrawn it. A new date will be communicated. That doesn't mean we have withdrawn it. We haven't. Definitely, it is still in place, and we will look at it.
This is a listening president. Otie kromu hwa ade na no hu se no 1 cedi de anya de beboa. We yi de free wo. Musuma semune se wa nwene ho.
Ansa na mekwa ni so no ma mentre menua kumai. Ni unu kuma wo. You know my age. You know my age. Mechi baba sis.
Fifi enyinsin o.
Bibi, do you know my age?
What do you say?
Oh, Bibi, my money take of
senior citizen.
Senior citizen. You need a birth certificate. You need a birth certificate.
Before soft copy.
You do national ID.
My inquiry.
National ID. Here birth certificate.
Me same ESLA report presented to Parliament by Dr. Kesel Atufosin.
Okay.
He presented it on March 25th, 2025, but it's actually for last year.
Okay.
I mean, kind 1 or 2 paragraphs. Kofu win I am a mobile. And being you my can so better reduce so only no crack because only mean an auntie. When you go as ya, because baby, now only me calling can't only baby.
As more can credit be any. What better has some more current cranty and those who need baby.
Or say, I am therefore pleased that we can continue the culture of transparency and accountability and present the 2024 ESLA reports, and in so doing, provide a detailed analysis of the revenue generated and allocations of funds to various beneficiaries and the impact of the ESLA on the energy sector. Atu force in the cancer ade ono de call parliament.
The point in this
me point ni say baby any report timu a atofo si na oye NDC ni ka say MPP for G Esla no omo chedi.
So one kind document in you.
Oh, but posh baby bebre wo mu a obo basu say they handled it in the transparent manner, but they are going to even continue with the accountability and transparency with which these reports are done. Or that academia, any media.
But quite significant is also the point. He mentions revenue collected.
Yes.
And to ensure stakeholder be also nyani
de.
So the question now is, Esla yedia kusia wano, den na enya revenue, emu ye chichema stakeholders.
And what who say, ye nyanu aya omo kan asema. They be a catch on say, omo de do kre kakra. No ma 2 foot regu Ghana ni for so ni intro. Ye buy no na kada. Energy sector na kada ho. And a World Bank for catch and say, e can work in dollars no. Se mo anhwe kan ho asema an kan sisi in the next 7-8 years time no, ebe ko about $12 billion. And then who say 2.5 billion. But if you are not careful, by the time you are ready to pay, no, in city terms, you pay about 12 something billion. It won't show one some nenka. And the receivables, no, equity besia, and the debate 2 years off completely. It's a 2 year, no, after the be bar, ye be 2 year a cano, ne be more or more de mom. What I say? The enutina, Sakane ebe 2.5, no, and that's what as 2.5. Yes, I can by now, a cost row. They know, but don't bet Nasia, not just say, in some normal to gum. Monday, a levy aba, 1 cedi levy. And the catcher will say, levy amudia bay, munya butre, because adia ama dollar no, eba from no, and your momo shisheye, you don't have any control, any hand in it. It's a bit me about say, or China beso, no, not dollar ne cost. They cost for a mobile day. It's yen China dollar in year stable. It's just a year stable between 2017 2018, a year stable for a long time. Now between 6 and 8 cities. Yen train na dollar ni stable la na bremo yes mo yanma be na de mo ya enye ye because o China yedim ne besi ebia ne say no China any America atena se o ma ye o mo hihye e mo taxes no o mate so se no mo nyina ate ase say sa trade war no o magyae. In fact, the reason why I did trade war in buy yellow mass because of the electric vehicles in America. China for the BYD cars they corner cheaper than Tesla no. And already you say crab president in the eco. What you say? The motivation for that trade war no cry say ni ho because they only max to kwanta ma pai. Omu to ayampia money omu. Into bet me yi sad any time because they no motivation be any ho was sponsor the party. Oban $1 million green campaign man $1 million every day. In Nanseno Castle in no money $200 and something million or the money every. Into Papa so say me bibi America phone to me turn a car. That Chinese cars, yes, that Chinese cars nearby America are more expensive. Into no yes, they say the hobium. Into no munya butre. Debbie. What's why na you assume akopasik law. After the muti say Israel and Iran barbecue. And yes, almost starting pool. Or more year prelims. Hey, my corridor idea. And you catch him say, "My new who ye." What you say? And now share a summer almost can't say no to no more year adiana. And in the bright hacking difference will move. This is also chance or no more than the finance minister and the energy minister. Because energy minister say, yeah, the Korea energy sector debt. Also say a shortfall within the dollar and CD wine.
There one can say.
Were you listening to me? I was.
No, he
the shortfall?
Or identify a number of things. Says can beat me acquire. As part of it in your working. But
one can say that was the reason why they are brought.
No, it wasn't the sole reason.
But there's another
and one can say.
Okay, cool. And Utino, say no more mudi adi buy no adi. Who said then I can almost started. And then I can almost started. And yes, sir, almost tie Ghana so full sufre.
Okay.
Ghana forecast say yentri no almost omuntri emo no oil marketing companies don't cast omunye ready because omu koto oil na okwa wo tax na opese o de to so no eso ko tua the cash e wo depot ho
na sa no consumer
no obeji o consumer so oni sika sisi o de kwa ko tua sa cash cause obu o call lift here about 10,000 liters 20,000 liters 40,000 liters no beto 1 cedi you can't say majority leader in parliament say Ghana for one city pet on what? One no. Say no more your imagine say levy it's just one city. It's just one city. They don't take their time to explain. Say 1 city on liter. 1 liter need to say pure water, a bottle water kesiye no, and 1 liter. Into top bottle water kesiye ni be out here 1 city on it. And I can't be anywhere use one bottle. If you motor crowd about kotobe 4 or 5 liters. Into koto bottle water, petrol bottle water be out here 1 city. Yeah, can Crawford said there be. After we who said no. Say any crown so dollar now started.
What's more from baby him cry?
Yeah, there's more from baby him cry because I here. Because America.
Then it's your Canada home.
Yeah, then that's what you ask yourself. Kai anya na eba wo. Kadi wo hodi da. And na wo crowd there wo wenya. Petrol no 17 cedis na ye tono e the power generator no. Eto light ni cheaper than you are selling it now. Yeah, time yeah power generators now see mind you, MPP, our target is not to increase thermal plants. No country is going along that side. Side in a come
on,
yeah, called green energy. And utina yeah, solar plants. Ewo VR, ewo Akosubu Lake nesono. I had the largest floating solar plant in Africa. See
solar farm.
Yes, and no na yeah ikunkwan see baby. Inti yeah plan say yeah ye solar panels na be duty free. No beer above from no beer to be so. If you have more people using solar, great be free kaka. Then we don't need to go and take this take or pay agreement. You am sign say no. Oh, a radio on pay the money. Adi amoko sign here no.
Ye nesi mame.
Ene papa yo
ye nesi mame me ka sesi.
Oh, enu tinu ama onwan kasa ade na be hwehwe mo. Yeah, na petrol ko ya diesel mpo e di power na ko ya ko do 20 cedis per liter. Na ye to e di power do so ni ho. And they also yanye repairs. It's so shameful. Charlie, what do you can say?
George.
EpaHoaDaben. Me da say.
Minority force wo mo anwene ho. E no mo di ade na ba nti no mo asan be twe asan na anu ya. Wo ntie futu.
Nyama mienu ehia wa mamu mu.
Eno ne de.
Consultation and communication.
Yeah.
Sa nyama mienu we se ande di wa mamu mu a edi mintimi ho ase eba. We ekai me 1996 komi preko. Then ekofa komi preko bai.
VAT 15%.
50%. That time Ochiman show boy Nanado. Fifi boss. Ose dabi wan kase omunyi VAT ni free ho. Ose ade a eba foforo no 15% ne de. Mu orem. Enti nenso no 96 no yan communicate ni ye amagana for. Yes yo vata ye de ba no MPP for say ye yin free ho ba na nya sa na asem no ete. Me ntina ha enka say
sometimes na buga no wum kakra o
sa me ntina ha enka say many minority no e ya 100%.
Pampers those days 80s no.
Me ntina enka say many minority no ya 100%. Tax de o ye den government bi obebe bia no odi bi beba enti say kasakasa ba ho na say presidency o ye ntwensan a eno ye by see ye be yi efri okra de bi me no ya me pene say o ebia 1 cedi ne de adabraka enti mon konkodwen ho na mon ti so by say ye be yi efri okra no because echina MPP ba o ye den a tax no or the fufuro ye den ebeba
petroleum price build up no your tax you de te kan so de dawo
de bia no se fifi ken o si ka we ye beto ye kai da hoda da let us give the new government the benefit of the doubt now dear
say esla da so
esla na yejuma
enti esla wa dey say 1 cedi bi
ena say 1 cedi na o dey ba no ena nsem aba ho ena o si watwe asan so watwe san na che say first one consultation and go so ye and say or sa ko consult to biom and I don't say or this time around but media make say when it comes to taxes dear whether say be wo e be ni ho government be a budget tax but say no government no enhwe na sa one cedi ne de per liter ne de me dey say e doso no mun kotena se no mun fa bibi fufuro a se ba Ghana fo say akra no omukoba na say omo say one person akra na still people will complain but dudu na won say oh e be a one person or two person there e reasonable enti no momo yen so mu na yen ko yen nim enti me dey say ane de one cedi ne na say fish number of liters of method diagu ni kai mu a enti no but ebi wom yen nyina e wom me say we me too me di me wife ka bebre san say since January nkola na wa twen mu akọ school nyina me man no fuwa we sa enti mesre bibi say one say they need
domestic there you manage it
na the president say what chance anke na e sha ase so san ko bisa abrewa yenchi enti mo san ko bisa abrewa ye ko ye no Ghana for see one city no e doso buy for the minorities to say oh men fam bakra debi
okay na whilst ya postpone ye no I think some cause the catch energy minister and said there is a lot of wastage within the system ECG atuska bebre go through so sourcing ne ho ne mama ECG lusu ne ma bebre so cables ne ade whilst ya postpone ade we no the minister should be working to fix leakages a water system ni mu yeah MPP for the cash water for mechanism by eno na beba boya ne manage e kan ye de IPPs no ECG esan say omo indisciplined inti no omo ntimi follow cash water for mechanism no sanka cash water for mechanism ye adwuma kasa one cedi we yan kan Ghana for
baby
until the minister must ensure say there is efficiency within the energy sector especially with ECG and yes you be so taxing for Ghana for say the confix problem na that's all. Why can't the cash water for mechanism work?
Bibi, you know ECG for no answer na light no obako GFE IPP no na kada ho
metiase
uni mun adikuntia IPP no e produce ebia 100 megawatts ama ECG so no at this time no meet me have just 70 megawatts into my 70 100 me penny na me 70 pe of 70 na 30 na aka na one fa no otua in za aka ne da ho twen no ono IPP ni dey fa no ho take up pay no 70 na wa fa no 30 na da ho no of 414 e say oba odi hu skapa now wa fa 70 no abedu Greco so transfer ade na fi de ho aba ECG ama na distribute a oho no so olusubi obetime olusubi 20 30 bi wom na ka 40 now it is 100 we lose am aka be 50 and let's say 60 60 na so okoton o timi 40 pesika it is at 20 no eyeka through no fault of me and you da ho
meanwhile ECG no ehun say Rico air transfer mana kaba ono akasa nso so air transfer the amaya ye kaba
no
aspenne Ghana fosika so okofa cables okofa transformers aba e dey na akoto sa ne ma no e kabuburo na beto ho ECG na akwa akoto power na fi Grico the ama ECG ECG kwa jiji huska wentimi anje ni na company na ECG so ono ankasa ntimi jiji sika no the contract na mo obi onipa na kwa jiji sika na ma ECG no sika ECG tua no for revenue no jiji ama no kra no
edoso
sika no
kwa akwa fa no
enti edi kente na ekonsuo
isi bibi
asem we ya ye nuanu be me ye nyina ya tra on the same
ade we ya ye kan bibi ade we ya ye kan
we no no crack you call ECG ya ye wo meters be from political meters we no cry they cannot be used up to today
Amaleba mami
political
meters. Within these 8 years, meters are
they are in use. When did they use
Shahaptel a contract ni say a revenue omujema ECG. This is company no.
Yeah.
Cash water for mechanism. Mo intimi I insist say be adwuma.
Say
Amaleba mami too.
Like that.
On say MPP for no. Omo could stop say omo ko bought placard stop smoking. Nipa no ko bought placard stop smoking. A bien and 50 day category. Now listen to him very carefully. And you could see that this smoke in a non-fat.
Okay.
That's a bond now all come Esla was incorporated into an SPV.
Okay. Special purpose vehicle.
Exactly. No, could raise $2.25 billion from the Chinese government. It didn't pay the debt.
It did.
It never paid. Existing debt
finance minister they bought previous government in SHSA.
About somebody
no country we.
I said there will be more
unless I read the whole document. Pastor, you know, kind of is on enough. But see, the most important thing is that I cannot hear Kasa Edahono. Whether MPP are buying a boy and this about too. What do? We must fight it.
Haruna Maleba.
So we require your support to deal with their mess.
Thank you very much. Haruna Maleba is his name. Fifi Deka is his name as well for the NPP. And Georgia for represented the Ghana Freedom Party. Medina Bismark Brown show produced by Reynold Ajiman, a.k.a. The Mask. And they were seen a need in the Minuso da soon the papa dia. Meda Abigail Fiankwase Namada Jimaima and so I say for being behind this show. Yes, sorry, Sweeney Jemu Ediama, a happy news team no, what the Numerica Bono Ebre, Yami Admochna, Bana, Ebesamba, Yabe Sumone Ghana, Manina.